So today, I know very little about the Steam machine. I know very little about the Nintendo Switch 2. I have avoided looking into both of these because honestly, I don't give that much of a shit about either of them. And then I got to thinking. I know my wife fucking loves the Nintendo Switch. She enjoys a Breath of the Wild. She enjoys some of the Nintendo Switch games because honestly, Nintendo does have some solid fucking games. But from my worldview, the Nintendo Switch 2 is not a console. It's just a re-release of the first console where they've just updated things so that people have less options. And they've made sure you have to buy the new Switch so that you can't just play shit on the old Switch when the old Switch was more than good enough. So this is what I know so far. Nintendo Switch 2 portable. How much does this thing cost? So about $500. So expensive. GameCube by comparison, not portable. Can I play Palworld? They will never allow Palworld on their system. So GameCube, not portable. $1,000 plus, which, holy fucking Jesus. That's brutal. What else does the GameCube have going for it? Basically a pre-built PC. Wide game access. Because they're using Linux, they're making sure that you can get as many games as possible. It's going to be nice and plug and play. It's going to act like a console. Acts like a console. What does the Nintendo Switch 2 have by comparison? Walled garden. So you're only really going to be playing any title that Nintendo allows you to put on it. They're keeping control of everything. Do you need a subscription for the Nintendo Switch 2? Are you stuck in getting a subscription model for this shit? Why are we comparing the Switch 2 with the GameCube instead of the Steam Deck? In my opinion, GameCube should be compared to consoles. So one of the reasons I want to do this comparison, right, as opposed to comparing it to the Steam Deck, is that it'll be very obvious that people either have the Steam Deck, they've already decided that they love the Steam Deck, and they're not going to bother with the GameCube most likely. Right? So it kind of becomes a null argument because you're kind of getting the same kind of systems. It would be an apt comparison, but I want to put these two companies against each other based on their gaming philosophy and what they do in general. So for online play, yes. Okay, so you do need a subscription for this. That's painful. That's actually fairly annoying. Does that mean that they're going to be acting like the PlayStation 5? Also, how expensive are Nintendo games? Do Nintendo games tend to be far more expensive than the stuff you find on Steam? Yes or no? My wife's nodding at me and she's like, you have no fucking idea. It's like you have to take out a loan. $80 a game? $80 a game? Does the game suck your dick? Does it do your laundry? What? Depends on the game. So the indie games, not so much, but the Nintendo games, yes. Switch games are expensive. Okay, so expensive games. I did notice something when it came to the Nintendo games, right? So my wife, obviously, she loves playing on the Nintendo Switch. Because my wife has taste, she enjoyed playing the shit out of Blasphemous, but when I looked up the price of Blasphemous, playing it on a Nintendo Switch versus playing it on Steam, it was way more expensive when it was in the Switch environment. So I think this is going to be like a walled garden problem here. Nintendo games never go on sale. You know what? That's a point for the GameCube. Games go on sale all the time. People are used to seeing games on sale. Yeah. You okay? My wife is turning on Nintendo. What? Okay, so
Nintendo is a toxic relationship, Gabe.
So Nintendo loves fucking their customers in the ass. I feel like that's an apt comparison to make. I feel like that's a very apt one. You can emulate on the GameCube. That's true. Emulation's a huge fucking deal. Oh my god! I've got to tell you, I took my my Steam Deck and I started emulating all the old Harry Potter games, and they ran fucking flawlessly. All the old PlayStation Harry Potter games run flawlessly through emulation. So emulation's a huge deal here, because that just gives you more game access. You can get a lot of things for free. You can get all the old stuff that's archived, that's not being sold. There's a lot there. Can you play old games on the GameCube? If you got your wife to try something like NWN1 on the GameCube or Spellforce, could she even do it? I don't think my wife would play Spellforce particularly, because she's not into those kind of strategy games and stuff, but I'm fairly certain that old games are going to be a thing on this. They don't have that walled garden kind of system, so you can either get shit through the Steam kind of store, or you can probably emulate it. You're going to have a lot more access when it comes to the GameCube. So this is the information I know so far. Okay, so basically my wife's saying that Nintendo are pseudo-rapists. Where their entire point is to rape your wallet. So far, GameCube is winning by a massive margin. Okay, so currently, based on the information we know so far, the GameCube is winning it by a country fucking mile, right? If you want to play the Nintendo games, you have to go towards Nintendo Switch unless you start to emulate them.
I'm fucked up in all that time.
Yeah, you're kind of fucked in that regard. Otherwise, I'm going to have to install an emulator on the Steam Deck so you can play it there. I think, yeah, you have to emulate if you're going to be doing that. So you kind of have to use backwards systems. And if we're being honest, how many people are actually going to do backwards kinds of things to use emulation? Emulation is a super niche market. Not that many people are getting into it. If you don't mind emulating Nintendo games and have the money, the GameCube is the better option. If you can figure out emulation, if you are motivated enough to figure out emulation, that's going to be the biggest deal, right? Because if you can figure that out, you're fine. If you don't want to go through the hassle and the rigmarole, most people don't actually want to do that. People get frustrated trying to emulate stuff. Usually there's some bugs, there's some errors, there's some problems. People don't like emulation for the most part. Seriously, the argument that I think of is the price of the games. Nintendo games, that'll be 80 to 100 a game. At 10 games, you've already caught up to the GameCube's cost. You make a very good point, Green Sky Wizard, in the fact that if you're paying $1,000 for the GameCube, you're probably going to pick up like 10 to 20 games on sale, get a lot more out of it overall in a longer period of time than you will on the Nintendo Switch, which is cheaper overall, but then the price of the games on top of that are just going to be infinitely more expensive. So this system ends up costing a lot more than this system. And on top of that, there's also the online subscription that you have to pay for if you want to play online. And Nintendo has that thing in their TOS where if they decide that they don't like you being online, they can just brick your system. Freemium console has to be a thing in the future, right? It probably will be. We're not there yet, but at some point, I think consoles overall are going to collapse and fall off over time. And because they're going to fall off, they're going to need to find a new monetization model to get people back into it. But you know what? Let's start there. This is the information we know. I don't know anything about the specs of the Steam Deck. I don't know anything about the specs of the Nintendo Switch. What does the Nintendo Switch 2 offer over the Nintendo Switch 1? Is there actually a fucking difference, or did they just update it so that they could sell things in another walled garden and make you, they're like force you into the situation where you're actually paying for a Switch 2 when a Switch 1 would have been perfectly fine? You can actually do productive stuff on the GameCube. Switch is just a gaming console. How many people are going to be buying the Steam Cube to do productive stuff, though? Versus they're just going to be buying it because they really want an easy way to access a bunch of games, and no other console offers what the Steam Cube would offer. Let's be honest, a lot of people, I think, who buy the Gabe Cube, they're not going to be setting this up in like their workspace or their office. I think they're going to be setting it up with their TV. I think that's going to be the most common thing. I think that's exactly what they're going to do. Is they're going to set it up with their TV in their living room. They're going to treat it like a console. It's going to be a console that has better access to games than anything else out there. It would be comfortable to just use your PC games on the TV, probably. But you see, you're thinking like a power user, Oz. You're thinking like someone who understands that you can take a PC, put it downstairs, connect it to a TV, hook it up, have a keyboard on your desk or whatever the fuck else. People are lazy as fuck. People want things to be as simple and straightforward as possible. I imagine because the Gabe Cube comes with a controller, or there's a controller that you can get for it. Not sure how that's bundled. I'm sure that when you get the Gabe Cube, it's plug and play. Turn it on, it just fucking works. You have no idea how fucking lazy people are. And if they're reaching into the console market, they want to make it as accessible as possible. Because if you turn on and off a console, it starts almost immediately, and then you're into playing your games, and there's no other like bullshit around it. That's what they're going for. Steam Link with LAN. Ooh, there's LAN connections as well. Gabe Cube is going to be very plug and play. It's gonna be a PC, but it's gonna behave like a console. That's what they're looking for. I bought a new PC on the tail end of Windows 10 times. I'd upgrade to a Steam OS if the price was better. You probably will at some point in the future. Look, Linux is really like starting to beat the fucking brakes off of Windows, and every day that passes, I get closer to installing Linux. If I'm being honest, even my 80-year-old fucking father installed Arch Linux, and then he starts messaging me and he's like, "You have no idea what a slave you are using Windows. Do you have any clue how bullshit Windows is?" And this is an 80-year-old man telling me this shit. SteamOS is now available for general use. Only exception is the NVIDIA GPUs. Oh, fuck. Well, I've got an NVIDIA GPU. Okay, let's take a look into this. Let's now take a look into what we're dealing with when it comes to the Steam machine versus the Nintendo Switch 2. I think we'll do it this way. We will do one Nintendo Switch 2 video, one Steam machine video. But I want to start off here because apparently, well, I like this guy. I trust him. He does decent videos. He's pretty solid. He has yet to lie to me. So let's see what this guy has to say.
Made the Steam machine obsolete by letting you build your own. What is going on? Valve put the Steam machine on sale for over $1,000 and the internet dunked on it. Well, now they've
All these people are wrong. All these fucking people are saying dead on arrival, these things are going to sell the fuck out. Mark my words, it doesn't matter that it's over $1,000. People will still buy the shit out of these things.
Released SteamOS for regular desktops, which means you can take almost any PC and turn it into a Steam machine yourself. It's the same experience, but no $1,000 box. It's literally free. So Valve built a console, charged over $1,000, and didn't even include a controller. Then they watched everyone roast it and went, actually, you can just build it yourself. Now, there's one big catch, and it is a big one. Right now, it only works with an AMD graphics card.
Fuck. I've got an NVIDIA card. I've got two NVIDIA cards, one for my stream PC, one for my goddamn thing. Goddamn, I'm locked out.
So if you're one of the roughly 80% of gamers on NVIDIA, the free version is locked for now. But you know what? Here's the part that got me. Turns out Valve was never even trying to sell you this Steam machine box. It was literally bait. What they want is SteamOS on as many machines as possible.
I'll do it. I'll fucking do it the second I can. Fuck it. I'll have SteamOS. I don't see why the fuck not.
Quietly dragging gamers off of Windows and onto their own software. The console, the free version, it all points the same way. They don't really care which one you pick. They just want to get you off Windows, baby. So yeah, maybe don't buy the Steam machine. You could build one or just sit back and watch Valve try to delete Windows in real time. Maybe
I will celebrate. I will sit here with fucking party poppers in my hands with a birthday hat on, celebrating the death of Windows at this point.
We need to offer our own Steam machine at Meta PCs. It's a good idea. Valve just made the Steam.
I'll take it. I'll take it. The second I can, I'll take it. Fuck it. Why not? Why the fuck not? Steam OS, I'll take that over Windows and their horse shit any day of the fucking week. So, Steam machine. Let's start here. Also, value add here, right? So, can turn your PC into a Steam machine. That's a huge value add. That's a big fucking dub. That's a massive win for them. That's gigantic. That's a huge deal. Okay, where do we start here with this? Okay, so we've seen the overview and quick start guide. Even Valve is disappointed. Steam machine review. Uh-oh.
Valve's Steam machine is...
Uh-oh. Okay, let's see what Linus Tech Tits has to say. Now, I know people have problems with Linus and stuff like that, but I'm honestly not big enough into the drama to give a fuck. He seems to be okay. He seems to tell the truth most of the time. I don't have a problem with him. Right, so let's see what his opinion is on this, because as far as I'm aware, didn't this guy go to the Steam offices and like get a preview of this shit and see what the fuck was going on? So I think we'll get some idea. He'll probably talk about the performance and specs and understand everything that's already going on with the Steam Deck. So let's see where this goes.
Valve's Steam machine is probably the most anticipated gaming PC of...
He's a perpetual victim. You see, I know none of the drama around Linus Tech Tits. I know none of those dramas. I also, additionally on top of that, Oz, couldn't give a fuck. You know why? All I give a fuck about is the information. That's all I care.
Of all time, I would argue, alongside the Steam Deck, one of the most important. But
also, so the Steam Deck has value. It's got massive value because it's so portable, right? And you can play a lot of games on the Steam Deck with zero issue whatsoever. Do you think someone... Okay, here, I'll ask you guys this. Would you rather have a Steam Deck or a Gabe Cube? Which one of those two feel like they have a higher value add to your life? Because from my perspective, if you've got a Steam Deck already, I don't see why someone would want a Gabe Cube. Deck portability, my PC is fine. That's the way I'm looking at it, right? You want the portability because you've probably already got a machine at home that you want when you're PC gaming, and you want something portable that you can use. Unless you've got like an old toasty PC and you're looking to upgrade, but you don't want to pre-build a machine yourself. You just want to buy something and plug it in and it fucking works. To play with my daughter. Okay, that's a fair reason. That's actually 100% fair reason. Gabe Cube makes sense for that. If you want to do multiplayer, like couch co-op kind of stuff. I just like smaller screens. Also a fair point. Gabe Cube, we have a Steam Deck and would use the Cube more in your opinion. I mean, if you're playing with other people, if you've got like a child, or you've got like a family member or a brother or sister or a cousin, and you regularly game together, it does make sense that you would prefer the Gabe Cube, because I imagine as well that if someone you know doesn't have the Gabe Cube and you have the Gabe Cube, it's pull out an HDMI cable, pull out the power cable, pick the thing up, take it to their house, plug it in and play, right? So there is value in it there, and you've got a nice big screen that you can attach it to versus the Steam Deck, which is like a single-player portable machine. Gooners can buy porn games on the Gabe Cube. Can't they do the same? I suppose you don't want to do the same on the Steam Deck, because then you smear the screen with cum. If I had a child, I'd want to know what kinds of games he or she is playing, so no handhelds. You are thinking exactly the same way I am, Green Sky Wizard. My daughter loves watching my wife play video games on the Nintendo Switch. She loves watching me play video games. I will not let her play video games alone. So that is a huge value add. That is a huge value add. South Africans go for Steam Deck because we don't have power and you can store it in a safe. Yes. The fact also you can get it from like a second party reseller and stuff. So I got my Steam Deck secondhand and it's been fucking perfect. As a secondhand Steam Deck, it's been fucking flawless. Gotta go to the Caribbean eventually. Fuck no. Take me to a first world country.
That doesn't mean that our last 2 weeks with it have been all good. There are the highlights.
Okay.
Like the unbelievably polished experience of SteamOS, not to mention perfect integration with your home media setup. But there's also been the lower lights. Performance in the latest title.
Ooh, performance issues. Honestly, for a price tag of $1,000, I would expect better from Steam. I would expect better from them than having performance issues like that.
Being a big one, alongside some hard truths. It costs more than we hoped, and Valve confirmed they feel the same way. But if you can stomach the upfront investment, Valve's GameCube is yet another massive step on their now decade-plus journey of saving gamers from the closed ecosystems that demand pricey subscriptions. And it is hands down.
That's true. That's a huge bonus. No subs. That's a huge one. That's a big fucking deal because every single console out there acts like a fucking loan shark trying to get money out of you. So that's also a big bonus.
The best solution that I've ever seen to solving the inconvenience of PC gaming on the couch. It's not the biggest or the baddest, but that 1-2 punch is why the Steam Machine is so damn exciting. It combines the strengths of PC.
But Steam has robust parental controls. You can set up Steam Family and then actually limit what kind of games your child can access. For someone like me with a daughter who's now 2 years old, who already loves video games and loves watching my wife and I play them, that's also going to be a big deal. I'm probably going to need to set up like family mode and then link our accounts and make sure she can only access the things that I want her to access. Do you know how, like, I'm just thinking about this problem from like the perspective of a parent, right? My kid will every now and then she'll like watch a show for like 20 minutes and then she's done. She wants to get up and she wants to go somewhere else. I once put on an episode of Curious George for her. She touched the screen. It went to the end of the episode. I turned my back for 5 fucking seconds. I turned back and there was some like disgusting YouTube kids fucking slop, brain rot shit on that goddamn iPad. And I was so pissed off because that shit is made to fuck up a kid's brain. It's just bright colors and bullshit and it fucks up a kid's attention span. And I could see it was fucking with my kid. So having parental controls is going to be a huge deal. I like that idea a lot.
Gaming with the conveniences of
another parent thing, you will immediately have your daughter be exposed to Linux UI instead of Windows. That's right, indoctrinate her early. That's a good idea.
Console gaming, and all in a nearly silent cube that's about half the size of a real console. But with this,
it's also its size is a huge deal.
This kind of hype, can Valve possibly hope to live up to gamers' expectations? If we're being realistic, probably not. But I still love the Steam Machine for what it is today, and I'm...
What does VeilGuard teach? VeilGuard teaches you how to not lose your money on games. It's a painful lesson, but it teaches you that not everything that's got a price tag on it is valuable. Huge lesson.
Really excited about what it means for the future of gaming. And I'm also excited, okay, but actually this time, to tell you about this companion product from our sponsor, Dbrand. Their robot sent over this...
I don't care. Can I be honest? I don't give a fuck how people dress up their Steam Cube. I couldn't give a shit. I couldn't care.
We're on a tight schedule, baby.
Okay, that makes sense.
I couldn't care.
We unboxed and explored the setup of the Steam Machine over on Short Circuit this morning.
Len read to type Frimo playing video games. Yeah, that's about right. I bet you know how to insult people inside of League of Legends, though. I bet you learned to be creative with your insults because of the moderation tools in it.
And we gave our in-depth thoughts on the controller last month. So we're going to be laser focused on the experience of the Steam machine itself. Right out of the gate, if you're a Steam Deck or a big picture user, you're going to feel right at home. The Steam machine comes with SteamOS pre-installed, Valve's Linux-based operating system.
Based as fuck. Stay away from Windows. No subscriptions. No buying the OS up front. It's just there.
That they've spent over 10 years optimizing for gaming. Why did it take so long? Well, because most games still don't support Linux natively. But thanks to Proton, a translation layer that allows Windows games to run on Linux, we found that almost any game made for Windows runs surprisingly well on SteamOS.
It does.
No command line, no driver conflicts, just press the button and play your game. It's been one of the Steam Deck's greatest strengths, and that remains true here. And even if somehow you don't like SteamOS, well, great news. Valve takes a very open approach to their hardware. Or should I say, your hardware, you know? The way it should be. So the Steam machine allows you to install any OS you want, even Windows. It's just that if you did so, you would...
Okay, there's another big point for the Steam Deck. OS freedom. You get to install whatever the fuck you want on it. It actually belongs to you. That's a huge deal.
Lose out on some of its best features, like a personal favorite of mine, the ability to suspend your software and resume at the push of a button, just like a console. Seriously.
It's weird that Steam they do the most basic bitch shit, and it's always the correct move. They don't put all this weird, complicated shit in the background. It's just like, here's a console. Yeah, it's yours. Do whatever the fuck you want with it. That's all they care about. It's so impressive that they've kept on this going. It's not, here's a console, but you've also got to pay for an online subscription fee, and you've also got to pay for this thing in the background. And if you want your games to run at this, you've got to go and take it to us, and then we've got to fix this. And I'm so impressed that somehow, after all this time, Valve has not caved and become another piece of shit company.
Thank you, Valve. Okay, we did find that there were some times that resuming a game would take a little longer than we'd like, but most of the time it was really quick.
That's not going to matter. Oh no, it takes me 10 seconds to resume a game instead of 5. If it doesn't take 15 minutes to start it up, that's all that matters.
Talking like 5 seconds, which is a huge edge over booting up your PC, loading your launcher, and starting a game. We did notice that sometimes the SteamOS UI would become laggy while a game is suspended, but realistically, we're dealing with pre-release software here, and with how much Valve has refined SteamOS on the deck over the last few years, which is much less powerful hardware, I can say confidently that they're going to get that sorted. The other big one for me is HDMI CEC. It doesn't have the best marketing behind.
Oh, it's a sequence of messages. Yeah, unfortunately, there's a cap on characters when it comes to chats. Since we're on Linus already, he recently made 4 videos about monthly Linux challenge he did with 2 other people from LTT. If you're interested in Linux, maybe I'll probably watch it in my spare time. I've seen so much. Listen, I've seen so many people glaze the shit out of Linux recently over all the other bullshit OSs that are out there that I think it's almost inevitable that I'm going to be switching to Linux at some point. It's just going to happen.
Behind it, and it doesn't have a sexy name. In fact, most people don't even really think about CEC because when
they don't give a shit about CEC. Linus puts a lot of emphasis on things most potential consumers won't care. All we want is flawless performance. If it takes an hour to boot, I won't care. I think if it takes an hour to boot, it will be an issue because what most people want is life has become so complicated with so many other bullshit things that you got to do that really you just want to press a button and your game's in it. That's it. Right to repair, you can buy all the parts of the Steam Deck from iFixit and repair it yourself if you want. I suspect GabeCube will be the same. It probably will be.
When it's working properly, you literally aren't supposed to even notice it. But it is hugely important to the living room experience, especially if you have multiple devices. CEC, if you're not familiar, is a protocol that's built into the HDMI standard that allows your various media devices to communicate with,
and it sounds like I'm a Russian. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to say Anno, because Anno is a lot easier.
And even control each other without running any additional cables. The most common uses for it are allowing your soundbar volume to be controlled by your TV remote, or having your Android media box and AV receiver power each other on and off in sync. Now, most PCs straight up do not support it. This is both a hardware and a software problem, and there's no hint of a solution on the horizon. So achieving any kind of seamless operation involves like janky IR receiver boxes and or complicated home theater automation.
Yeah, these things already exist, but they're complicated to set it up, and most people don't want to do it.
Well, Valve hated that, so they built their own software and custom motherboard for the Steam Machine that, from our experience, just plain works. You press the Steam controller button, it turns on everything, selects the right input.
That's what matters the most. That's all people are going to give a fuck about. Push a button, it works.
And bingo, bango, bongo, seconds later, you are gaming exactly where you left off. But there's more to a good gaming machine than just living room integration, as Microsoft so painfully learned.
Go to Internet Explorer.
Oh.
Oh, nice.
And
Oh, fuck. Is Xbox still alive? Is Xbox still a fucking thing? Has Xbox kind of like gone the way of the dinosaur at this point? I see no news about Xbox doing anything good or doing anything interesting when it comes to stuff. I feel like Xbox just kind of gave up the fight.
the Steam Machine's raw gaming chutzpah leaves a fair bit to be desired, unfortunately. To be clear, it's not terrible. Valve chose a semi-custom 6-core Zen 4 CPU with 16 gigs of DDR5 memory rated to 5600 megatransfers per second, alongside a semi-custom GPU with 8 gigs of dedicated VRAM.
None of that's bad. I would suggest to anyone who's in the stock market right now, it might be time to pick up a few shares of AMD. Let's check, actually. No, fuck. God damn, it's already too late. AMD's on the rise. If they went with the AMD systems and most people aren't using AMD GPUs and most people don't want to have to build or set up a PC or get a pre-build because that's way more expensive, getting a mid-range PC, which is essentially the Steam Deck, I think AMD stock price is going to continue to rise for quite a while. Holy shit, that's quite a jump. They just flatlined for years, and then all of a sudden Steam GameCube, and they start fucking spiking. Holy shit. God damn. I hate that the CEO of NVIDIA and AMD are cousins. Welcome to reality where everything is rigged and it's all made up and they're going to try and fuck you regardless of what you do. That's just par for the course at this point. This is also what will get more people interested in the environment of gaming PCs, as too many of the younger generation just want something that works when they push the play button. You know, I don't even blame young people for feeling that way. I think that the fact that they just want shit that works is the right way to go. I want to see more of that. I want things to have a button. You push the button, it goes on, and you don't have to worry about it.
So that's more CPU performance and a lot more RAM than the current crop of mainstream gaming consoles. But the current crop of gaming consoles is 6 years old now. And if
Oof. Does this mean that there's probably going to be a Steam Box 2? Where the GameCube is updated with higher performance specs, and they're probably going to sell it at $2,000.
we look closely at the specs for these chips, they look more semi than custom, with a strong resemblance to laptop chips
Good night,
from
Anno.
2023. Now, according to Valve, that's not a problem for most buyers. The Steam Machine should outperform approximately 70% of the gaming PCs that are out there in the wild. And
Makes sense.
if the Steam Deck is anything to go by, developers will squeeze blood from a stone, optimizing for a popular hardware config like this one. But with all of that said, I still feel pretty strongly that these are not the kinds of parts that I would expect.
Wait, Steam Machine is currently their second attempt. Isn't it like their 10th attempt? Haven't they been trying to get the Steam Machine to be a thing for like a long while? And it's just this one's been the one that's hit the winning jackpot? As far as I'm aware, this is the one that's hit like mainstream popularity. And they've tried Steam Machines before in the past and they just never worked out.
expect in a 4K gaming machine, even with the asterisk of FSR upscaling. But I could be wrong, right? So let's take a look at the numbers. Right.
Winning with these RAM prices, Oz, mark my fucking words. The Steam Gabe Cube, regardless of the price, will still sell the fuck out. The consumerism is insane. People with PCs will still buy this thing. A bunch of scalpers are going to buy this thing. Every single one of their mother is going to buy this thing because of its ease of use. And it doesn't actually matter. People with cash to burn will probably spend it on this.
Right out of the gate, the Linux port of Shadow of the Tomb Raider absolutely crushed Valve's target, hitting over 120 FPS at 4K. Not bad, but that is an 8-year-old game, and sadly, the rest of our suite ended up sitting with average frame rates between 40 to 50 FPS.
Worst performance in a base PS5 at 2 times the price. Newgash, consider the accessibility, right? Consider the fact that you get the entire Steam library, that all the games you're going to purchase are going to be cheaper than anywhere else you would get them. You're not stuck within a walled garden. People are still going to buy it, even if the performance is lower.
In fairness to Valve, some of these games were...
Also, it's fucking insane. It's fucking ridiculous that anyone's thinking that they're going to play 4K on that thing. I'm sorry, that's just cope. That is pure cope. At most, people will maybe do like 1440. Most people, I would assume, this is just off the top of my head, most people, I would assume, play at either 1440 or 1080. 4K is ridiculous. You're not getting 4K out of this thing.
Probably running at settings that are a little ambitious for the humble Steam machine, and you could absolutely turn Cyberpunk, for instance, down a little bit and get a more fluid experience, but that wasn't the case for all of them. Doom the Dark Ages, for instance, was already cranked nearly as low as it could go.
Ooh,
this whole situation feels like a completely self-inflicted wound. Like,
that cope is kind of Valve's fault because they advertised it as 40K 60 FPS. That was okay. That was pure retardation on their fault then. Oh, on their part. Thinking that you're going to be playing at 4K 60 FPS on this thing, that's fucking retarded. There's no fucking reason at all anyone should assume you're getting 4K out of this thing. That's borderline retarded on Valve's part if they thought that was going to be a real thing. You can buy a pre-built PC for the same price with better pervocracy if you put it together yourself. Yes. But how many people are going to do that? How many people trust Steam over some pre-built system? How many people are going to go find a PC to build themselves? Most people want a system where it's plug and play. That's what most people want. I think that the Steam machine is going to be targeting console gamers more than people who are deeply embedded and are power users within the PC space. But I think that people within the PC space are probably still going to lean into this as well. You got to remember, people are fucking retarded, right? They would rather put in less effort and just get a thing rather than put in the extra effort and like build it themselves. People are lazy as fuck when it comes to this. This thing is going to sell the fuck out. I think it's retarded that they tried to do the 4K 60 FPS thing. That's just borderline retarded.
Like if Valve had never said 4K gaming at 60 FPS, and had they instead offered a more nuanced, 1080p on medium details, maybe high or ultra for older titles, and in some cases, you know what, 4K upscaling looks pretty darn good, I wouldn't even have to be talking about this. But now I have to go spelunking for what the heck Valve was talking about. And it seems like for newer titles, what they meant was low settings with FSR set as low as ultra performance, which means we are upscaling from a mere 720p base resolution all the way to 4K Ultra.
Ooh, that's bad.
HD.
That's bad.
At these settings, all right, sure. All 5 of our games did hit averages that are comfortably above 60 FPS, but at these settings, all 5 of our games also looked pretty ugly. And there's more bad news. Even with 28 ray tracing cores, RT is pretty much a non-starter on this thing. This is true both for games where it's an option, like Cyberpunk, where we saw an average of 15 FPS.
Ooh. Ooh, that's ugly. That's gonna piss people off. That is genuinely gonna piss people off. This is their second attempt at the Steam machines. The first attempt failed because Proton wasn't a thing and they contracted other companies like Alienware to make Steam machines. This time around, it's much better because if people don't like the price of this that much, they can make their own Steam machine. Either way, Valve gets more people on Steam and off of consoles. I think the more I look into this, the more this seems like a push towards getting people to use Steam OS rather than just having the Steam machine, because most people who have a better system than what the Steam machine is will probably just get Steam OS and be happy with that.
Yes, at 1080p Ultra, and especially true for games that force its usage, like Indiana Jones or Doom the Dark Ages, where only one configuration we tested managed to consistently stay above 60 FPS. And that was the handheld one, right?
Yep.
Yikes. To be clear, it's not the end of the world today, but whether you love ray tracing or hate it, there will be more titles in the future that will require hardware support for it, and the Steam machine just plain doesn't have the horses. Once again, I'd love to be proven wrong here. Valve did contact us hours before recording this to say they are aiming to patch it, but guys, it's a 7600M GPU.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to patch that. This is like downloading RAM. You're not going to be able to fix that problem.
There is no path that I can trace that will lead to acceptable performance on this hardware, especially in light of your unqualified claims of 4K 60 FPS, which still wouldn't be a huge problem if it wasn't for the big white elephant, the PlayStation 5. On paper, the Steam machine and the PS5 trade blows, but in real life, I'm sorry, Valve, but it just doesn't quite seem to work out that way.
So PS5 is going to outperform it because people pre-build their games based on the PS5, but the reality is, oh man, this is starting to look like maybe Steam needs to find a way that they can get onto the PS5 and install Steam OS onto a PS5 rather than trying to sell the Steam machine itself. It seems like the only reason to buy a Steam machine is if you're working off of an old toasty PC. You don't want to go through the hassle and the rigmarole of a pre-build. You don't want to build something yourself. You're looking to upgrade, but you're not looking to get like the high-end stuff. It seems like the Steam machine's gonna win out for people who want to play indie games or games with like lower graphical fidelity. But the second you try and play anything that's AAA or higher, you're going to be in deep fucking trouble.
Now, I do have a disclaimer here. The PS5 doesn't support any kind of frame time analysis.
Funny you say that. Someone already did install a Linux on a PS5. Is it working? Is it doing the things it's supposed to do? Because then I see no reason to not just pick up a PS5 and do that instead.
So any numbers we give you guys are going to be kind of rough and tumble ad hoc. We explain the methodology, by the way, of both this test and the rest in our accompanying labs article. We'll have that link.
Yes, and okay, makes sense. What's likely going to happen in the future is the Steam Deck 2 and the GameCube 2 are likely to be ARM-based and use FEX to run games. And before you say that won't work, some people are making apps with FEX and running Resident Evil 9 on fucking Android phones. Yeah, it'll probably happen. It'll probably happen, but what I want to see is an official release by the... Excuse me. Sorry, I'm allergic to the bullshit of 4K 60 FPS. What, you want to go out? Hold on, let me just let my dog out. She's losing her mind. You want to go out? All right. It is a scam with logic trap loop built in. I can't say you're wrong, right? Like, it's this weird thing. I'm trying to find where exactly does the Steam machine actually fit. It seems to be, it's going to fit in with people who have a lower end PC than the Steam machine. But if the Steam machine is struggling to compete with 6-year-old consoles, I don't know.
Down below, but anyway.
It's going to fit in with fanboys and lazy people. That's where it's going to fit in. Lazy people who trust Valve, and it's going to fit in with the power users and the people who love Valve and want to support them, I think. Can I send links? I don't know if YouTube allows links. I think the AI moderation tool prevents it, but you can hop over to Kick and probably send it there.
In God of War Ragnarok, the base PS5, which upscales from 1440p to 4K, was chilling around 75 to 78 FPS. Meanwhile, in the same scene,
I mean, look at this. Look at this. So the Steam machine at 1440p is still being outperformed by the baseline PlayStation. Ooh, that's trouble.
Chilling around 75 to 78 FPS. Meanwhile, in the same scene, the Steam machine with mostly medium settings and FSR set to quality landed in the 60 to 63 range. This isn't the end of the world. We actually found that...
Okay, so that's a downside. That's a huge downside on this, right? So, performance issues. That's a huge fucking downside right there. Can't outperform the 6-year-old PS5. That's a huge downside.
And at 1440p native, we were able to break 70 FPS, even with our details turned up. But what it isn't is a win. With that said, choosing the right games and enabling variable refresh rate is going to help to mitigate some choppiness, and you can absolutely have a really solid gaming experience on this box. Also, as these things go out in the wild, I do expect Valve's Verified for Steam Machine program to incentivize developers to optimize for this hardware specifically. It's just that you got to keep your expectations in check. It's not magically going to get way faster. Coming back to good news though, the Steam Machine's download speeds are solid. We saw close to full gigabit speeds over a wire, and a little less than half of that via Wi-Fi 6E. That's partially probably thanks...
I don't think that's that big of a deal when it comes to downloads. I think people care more about playing the game itself than downloading the game at any rapid fire speed. You just see the bar of the download, and when it's finished, it's finished. People don't really care about that.
Thanks to Valve's 4 dedicated antennas in this box, 2 for Wi-Fi, 1 for Bluetooth, and 1 for Steam controllers. And we also saw an average power draw of just 175 watts under heavy load, with a mere 66 watts for later games. That contributes to a cool, quiet experience with the Steam Machine, landing right in line with the PS5 for acoustics, and averaging just 68 and 66 degrees across our CPU and GPU respectively.
Do you see the engineering problem here? Can anyone here see what the engineering problem is? If you're lost, here, let me give you an example of what the engineering problem is here. Here we go. This will explain the engineering problem of what we're looking at. That right there. So, testing out the Steam Deck, testing out the Steam Deck, getting these performance numbers is using the console or using the Steam Deck as it is intended, right? What's going to happen is games are going to continue to advance forward. The art of optimizing video games has kind of become a lost art. I think these systems might actually start catching on fire inside of people's houses as they try and push these systems as hard as possible. Think about its form factor. It's really small. All the components are really tight together. The airflow of that thing is all the airflow comes underneath the Steam Deck. I mean the Gabe Cube. All you need to do is put that on a fucking carpet or have a rug underneath it, block the airflow, and then crank up the settings, and you're going to have the same old PS5 problem coming up again. This is going to happen because people, like what Linus is talking about here, all these specs are running the system as intended. And anyone who's done any kind of customer service stuff, no one uses the fucking thing as intended. They try and crank that shit up to the goddamn moon. A little fire never hurt anyone. Yeah, tell that to the rapists in the communities in my area. Can people provide their own SSD to replace the Steam Machine SSD? I wonder how hot swappable stuff is. I hope it is. I hope it's not like a gigantic battle to get inside of that thing if you want to upgrade it. But the issue with this, especially when it comes to temp, is no one runs the system as intended. They run a system trying to max out everything. And all you need to do is make one stupid fucking mistake and this thing's going to be setting itself on fire in people's living rooms.
Good job, Valve. And good job making this such a repairable and serviceable machine. Not only can the Steam Machine be easily opened up, including the ability to upgrade both the RAM and SSD, but Valve has once again partnered with iFixit to make guides and replacement parts available.
Based as fuck. I'll give them that. Based as fuck.
Absolutely.
Right to repair. Amazing.
Amazing. Maybe consider an LTT precision screwdriver if you ever need to make any upgrades or repairs. It's got all the bits you need and a convenient magnetic parts tray that's included in the lid. LTTstore.com. Another highlight is Valve's open approach to peripherals. I mean, can you imagine Nintendo just allowing any old thing to be plugged into their precious gaming machine? Meanwhile, in Valve land, the Steam Machine played nicely with every mouse, keyboard, or headset that we plugged into it, including random Bluetooth accessories. One thing of note is that some of our audio accessories were a little quieter than usual on the Steam Machine, even with the volume maxed, but again, this feels like one of those, don't worry, Valve's gonna fix that things. Bringing us...
Wait, if they max it out recklessly with overclocking and shit, that's a therm problem. If you smash your console with a hammer, it breaks too. That's not the producer's problem. I think it is the producer's problem. I'll tell you why, Green Sky Wizard. Taking a hammer to a system is completely different from some fucking retard taking the Gabe cube and putting it on a carpeted floor and blocking all the airflow. You're thinking about this from the power user perspective of someone going in and overclocking stuff and doing all of this. This seems to be a casual gaming experience. And the thing you know about casuals is they don't take care of their shit. They don't treat the thing the way it's intended to be treated. They treat the thing the way they want to use it. So I can see someone loading up Cyberpunk, hitting ultra graphics, putting it on like a rug or one of those stupid fucking doilies or whatever the hell else they have on their coffee table. It getting sucked up into the airflow system, blocking airflow, overheating the system, and then they're going to throw a temper tantrum and try and sue Valve. You got to remember, people, there's a reason why coffee from McDonald's comes with a label that says caution hot. It's because people are fucking retarded.
Finally, to something Valve couldn't fix. The detail you've all been waiting for. You can order your...
And you know what the fucked up part about this is? Valve could fix this really, really simply. You take your Steam Cube. You've got your little stand here. And all you need to do is add a singular base plate here at the bottom so that airflow doesn't get blocked. Still not Valve's problem? It is. It is Valve's problem. I'll tell you why it's Valve's problem, right? How many bullshit videos did we see in the past when Tesla started launching and Tesla cars started catching on fire? And then it turned out later that a bunch of people were actively setting those cars on fire or were trying to fuck with the battery system. And then they take a picture of their Tesla burning. A bunch of mainstream media and news stuff picks it up and says your Tesla will catch on fire and kill you. That fucked with their public perception. How many people went and looked at the correction that happened afterwards versus how many people saw the news headline and just ran with that narrative? The same thing is going to happen to Valve. It'll fuck their reputation because other people are going to be retarded. So it does become Valve's problem because it'll fuck with public perception.
Your Steam Machine today, and it will cost $1,050 US for the 512 gig storage version and $1,350 for the 2
Fuck me, that's
terabyte. I think we better talk about this. Is that reasonable?
What reminds me of the story with the woman who microwaved her cat to dry it. The cat blew up. Then she sued the company and somehow won when she was the retard. Yes, that's exactly what's going to happen, right? It will fuck up their public image. People don't look into these things. Most people read a news headline and just run with that narrative, believing that they know everything about what happened. It will fuck with their public image when this thing catches on fire, regardless of how the user used it, regardless of the misuse on the user's end. And if Valve says, not my problem, that's just going to make it worse for them, because then the next news articles that follow Steam GameCube catches on fire is going to be Steam says that this is your fault, not theirs.
It is reasonable in this current market conditions, but it is...
You sound like...
Wait, when selling a product or designing software, this is how you need to look at the average user.
I need my...
Yes. Actually, yes. Unironically, yes. I know this. I worked in engineering fields. You have no fucking idea how much safety testing, how much like testing you have to do because your average user is fucking retarded. I'm not kidding when I say this, right? There was a team of aeronautical engineers who built an aircraft. They built a fully functional aircraft, and to test out how good their systems were, they took a trained chimpanzee and made the chimpanzee fly the test aircraft. And the chimpanzee flew the test aircraft perfectly. They then took a bunch of private pilots, tried to get them to do the same thing, and the private pilots almost always crashed or fucked something up in the simulators because they refused to read the operational manual. If that's happening on a high end of people actually skilled in a certain set of things, imagine what's happening amongst the public. Imagine what your average user is. Don't think about yourself. You're a power user, right? You're someone who's already figured out how to use a PC, how to log into a platform. You've already found your way onto Twitch. You are a power user. You are not the average person using the system. You are already like 25 fucking steps ahead of someone else. This is some retard's going to buy this. It's going to catch on fire. It's going to be user error, and they're going to make it Steam's fault. What? That's the wrong one. That's the tato.
You're being held hostage.
I mean, Valve was held hostage by the parts makers.
So reasonable, yes, but like, is it
It's understandable, but still frustrating.
too high?
Yes.
Absolutely. Price is too high, and it doesn't matter. It's still going to sell out. Reasonable price for the Steam Deck. I mean, for the Steam Cube. Probably, assuming all other issues were resolved. Personally, I think I wouldn't pay more than $750 for this thing. I think $750 is a reasonable price range. But it doesn't matter because these guys are still going to sell the fuck out.
And that's a tough thing. I think it's fair to say that both of those things are true.
Yes.
Based on the costs that Valve is seeing, and also based on other options that are available in the market, it can be both reasonably priced and still too high.
I was really hoping that...
Wait, Steam Machine was going to be about 700 to 800 before the RAM and memory increase. Yeah, that sounds like a reasonable range. For what they're selling, it's a low-end PC. It might still be an upgrade for a lot of people because they're using their old toasty. It's got a bunch of accessibility features. It's really easy to set up. It's push a button, play your games. One question, Moonstone. When you say $700 to $800, is that with the controller or without the controller? Because in my head, reasonable price is $800 maximum with a controller, particularly for the performance and specs that they have. without control. Ooh, fuck. How much is the Steam controller? What does the Steam controller cost in USD? $100. So if you want to use the Steam Deck to its full, the Steam machine to its full capacity, it's $1,000 plus another $100 on top of that. Oh, that's a downside. Doesn't come with controller. I think that's a big miss. I think that the system should come with a controller, particularly if you're looking to aim at console users. I think it should by default come with at least one controller. Controller is $80 when bundled with the Steam machine. That still pushes it above $1,100 average on a price range. I think that's fucking insane. I think that it's a 4-figure price range is going to be a huge psychological barrier for this.
This was going to bring PC gaming to the mainstream living room that I could pitch all my friends and be like, oh, get a Steam.
Console players already have controllers they can plug in and use. Stop thinking like a PC user, Bestia. Stop it. You're thinking of alternate peripheries. How many people who play consoles want to use the controller that matches with their console? I'm going to make a hot take here. There is nothing wrong with the Mad Catz controllers that you used to be able to use with the PlayStation. There was nothing wrong with it most of the time. But how many people who are console babies fucking despise Mad Catz controllers? How many people hate the off-brand controllers? They fucking hate them. They wanted the PlayStation controller that went with the PlayStation. Absolutely 1000% people are going to want the controller if they're getting the system.
Machine is so cool, but this...
I'm not thinking as a PC user, I'm thinking as a poor user. Yeah, but that requires you to apply intelligence, right? Because when you're poor, you have to make up the gap in the difference of money with intelligence, right? I think that most console people don't think that way. I think that most console people, they want the controller that matches the system. I don't see someone upgrading to a new system if they could, and wanting to keep their own controller versus having the new controller that goes with it.
This is a premium price, even though I wouldn't say it's a premium product.
And in fairness to Valve, they did telegraph this. They were explicit when I came down there for the reveal that it was not going to be subsidized.
I had this piece of shit as a kid. Once I saw this in the Ocean Gate video, I knew, okay, so you talk about the Logitech controller. I've got one of those as well.
By the 30% cut that they're going to take on games, because they have no guarantee that people are actually going to run SteamOS on this or buy any games. And the PS5 is such a giant, even bigger elephant in the room than I even said before. The fact that you can still, even at the increased price, buy a PS5 for $600 US or a...
Oh, that's gonna... Oh, fuck. $600? Fuck me. With controller? It's basically half the price of the Steam Deck, of the Steam machine. Oh, that's brutal.
PS5 Pro, which is a much more powerful machine, for $900.
And then you'd still have money left over for your first year of PS Plus.
And both of those PS5s include a controller too. So
that is the downside. People fucking hate subscriptions.
That's going to cover almost another year. With that said, if you're keeping it for a long time, I mean, let's talk TCO. That's a term that not everybody's familiar with outside of like business or the data center. It's total cost of ownership. It often gets said that on the PC side, pricing of games is a huge boon compared to consoles, but you actually opened my eyes to the PlayStation Store having a lot of deals.
There was a few weeks ago where there wasn't a sale going on and people freaked out. So I think there's sort of a myth around Steam sales being way better than console, but I think we balanced out. That being said, you can play online games for free on a Steam machine, and on a PlayStation, you're going to be spending $110 a year.
That is brutal.
A lot of money. That's a game and a half.
Another big benefit, though, I mean, we touched on this, but accessory support. Nintendo's not the only one that keeps things locked down with respect to plugging things into their consoles. I mean,
That is true. Steam Cube does have the advantage on that they're going to give people accessory support.
years, entire brands that make gaming headsets.
PS Store plug fuck off. Yeah, no, you know what? That's fair. I think people don't really care as much about the deals that you're going to get unless you're like a hardcore PlayStation user, purely because you're forced into a subscription for online services.
Their only reason for existing
You're paying for your internet on top of your internet, which pisses people off.
at all was that they managed to get the license to produce compatible Xbox gaming headsets.
Shout out Turtle Beach.
They were awful audio quality, like had no reason for existing other than licensing.
Even controllers, we're living through a renaissance in the PC space, but to find something good for the PlayStation 5 that has back paddles for less than $200, so impossible.
Yeah, we're actually, shout out David's upcoming video. We're doing a modding video on the stock DualSense to add paddles to it.
So excited.
Gonna be pretty freaking cool. I don't even know if I care about bringing this up.
Main question though, can I repair the Steam machine? I know I can go fuck myself when it comes to PS. What about this new thing? So like he said earlier, hello, they've paired with iFixit. So if you've got a fucked up Steam machine and you want to go repair it, you can probably go and get it repaired wherever the fuck you want, right? It doesn't seem like Steam or Valve is locking down their Gabe Cube. So it should be fairly easy to find someone who's going to repair the system for you. As an added bonus, because the Gabe Cube is already technically a PC, it's probably going to be a lot easier for repair shops to be able to repair that versus trying to do all this backward shit that happens with the PlayStation. So on the repair side of this, the Steam Cube is winning by a large margin.
But there is one thing the PS5 does that the Steam machine for now doesn't, and that's VR.
Yeah, I'm not a big VR guy.
I don't think most PlayStation gamers are right now.
No one's a big VR guy. VR was touted as this big fucking deal and it's become so niche. It could have been an entire renaissance to gaming and it's just fallen by the wayside. It turns out that fat, lazy gamers just want to keep being fat, lazy gamers. They don't want to run around the fucking room. Initial upfront cost is a lot, but if there's one thing Steam has that PS5 does have, if you have a family member that's a PC gamer or a friend that's games on PC, there's a library sharing. You can play their games. Yes, that's also a huge bonus, right? The fact that everything is kind of linked to this environment right here on Steam, and people are so used to using this, and you can share it, and there's family sharing and account sharing. That is a huge bonus.
No, they have like, what, 12 games?
I don't think there will ever be another PSVR.
No. I mean, the other white elephant in the room is the custom PC you build in a white case. Literally tomorrow, we have a video coming out where we build a PC for the price.
I don't care.
Upgradability and serviceability. We're going to see better performance.
We're going to have to talk about it tomorrow.
I know I shouldn't be that surprised, but the performance really was a downer for me.
I think if they hadn't made the 4K 60 promise, it would be a little less painful.
Or if they had left the door open for Steam Machine Pro. Like if I knew there was going to be something based on a 9070 coming, that would be the legitimate 4K machine, then I think we'd be having a really different conversation.
Or eGPU support.
It's probably coming in the future.
Or maybe some way to upgrade more than just the RAM and SSD.
Okay, we've spent a lot of time harping on the price, but what would be the right price? What's the no hesitation I'd buy one tomorrow price?
$750. $750. $800 if it comes with a controller.
Me, or I recommend to people?
You recommend.
$800 I think is reasonable. It's slightly worse performance than a console, but it has so much more openness and features that I think balances out that value.
Yeah, I mean, we barely even touched on the fact that you can use
1,200. That means you're buying the shit. You're buying it immediately, huh? Valve had the potential to make VR something, but they did fuck all with it. They did, and it's so goddamn frustrating. It's infuriating to see what the potential of VR could have been versus what it is. It's so goddamn frustrating because it could have been so fucking cool. Imagine we lived in the alternate timeline where VR became the mainstay of gaming. And it's like teenage kids are going into school jacked as fuck. And everyone's like, where do you work out? At the Steam store. Just because they're all in shape because they've been moving around their fucking rooms all day.
Use it as a full-fledged desktop PC. Like, they have done a lot of work, not just on the big picture gaming aspect of SteamOS. I'm actually planning to, once we get the real Steam machine back from labs, throw it in my backpack and use it as my daily driver machine for a month.
Oh, that's pretty fun.
Yeah. So I'll have to do everything, gaming and work on it. And it's actually portable enough that you just could. Portable.
Portal.
But VR needs a good mech piloting game. VR has so much fucking potential, Bestia. VR has an insane amount of potential, the more I think about it. And it's just none of it has been attained. Mech Warrior, MMOs, fighting games. There's so much shit that you could do with VR. VR flashlight, I'm pretty sure that exists already.
Do you want to hear something that's really sad?
I do.
I asked them specifically, what was the original price point in mind for the Steam machine? And they're like, I can't give you that. But if you look at the price increase of the Steam Deck, that tells you what we were the targeting for.
VR postal game, please. I'd buy it. Lou, I'd buy it. I just need a mod that changes it to the ArenaNet offices.
And that's about a $200 price increase. So we would have hit our price if it wasn't.
The RAM apocalypse. Do you think it's still going to sell anyway?
It'll sell a certain amount to the Valve diehards. Yeah. I think that there's enough people out there that are like, I believe in this. I want to support this. I don't think it's going to cross into the mainstream, even to the level of the Steam Deck. I think the Steam Deck's greatest strength was that it was a really slick console-like experience for a really aggressive price. And this is not an aggressive price. This is a enthusiast price.
I hate
it's still going to sell out.
The words you're saying, but I think I accept them. For now, if RAM pricing were to normalize, I suspect mostly good guy Valve would make adjustments to the pricing. I can just also understand their perspective that they can't just operate this thing at a loss. And
do you think scalpers are still going to jump all over this thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I hope they get stuck with it forever.
One thing I would never hope they get stuck with is a sponsor like D-Brand.
Jesus Christ, how many fucking sponsor plugs does this man have?
They've done everything to me. For them credit, they put more complicated than you two. Once you make those right now, the point is, boom, companion cube. And it's got a few other notable features. It's got removable mechanics, fully open on the backside.
This video was like 50% fucking ad, more than anything else, right? So the other downside I can see to the Gabe Cube so far, it's not up to date. For all it's good, it's not up to date. It's already an outdated system, and it's barely been released. You should get the sponsor skip plugin. I probably will. All right. Let's check Gamers Nexus. Next one. Let's see what Gamers Nexus has to say about the Steam Cube. These guys do a solid job as well. Let's see what their teardown is.
Oh, cannot strip in the screw would be great. Oh, glad I stopped. There's a cable there. That would have fucking sucked.
Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at the fucking form factor on this thing. There is no way this thing doesn't catch on fire. There is zero fucking way that this doesn't catch on fire in someone's living room at some point.
Glad I stopped. There's a cable there. That would have fucking sucked. Just shear it. Oh, what are you doing? I'm really not a fan of the glue. This is promising. Is the heatsink? The heatsink is still on there. Cool. Wow. This is great. Okay. We already have our 1 hour long review of the Steam Machine online. This is $1,050 with a 512 gigabyte SSD.
It's like 70% heatsink, and all it's going to take for this thing to still catch on fire is just blocking the airflow once.
And 1,350 with a 2 terabyte drive. So we're going to be a little more careful with this than we might normally be for a teardown of a pre-built. But the step one to tearing down the Steam Machine is removing the front panel. That's better.
Oh, God. What a better idea. Holy shit. More airflow into the system. Oh, that's He just upgraded the entire system.
So we're going to take this apart today. So far, I've only taken this apart a little bit, so I needed to get in to just do the thermocouple installation, which you can see here, they don't ship with those, and then also remove the fan for fan testing. That part's pretty easy. That should get us to the memory, where I can finally learn if we have 1 or 2 sticks of RAM in this. As we get into this, Valve emailed us to correct something that they said. This was a Valve statement, not a GN one. So when we were interviewing Valve in part of our review, Valve stated that the machines would come with either a single 16 gigabyte stick or 2 8 gigabyte sticks of memory.
Wait, PC gaming is so annoying. I gotta learn what the fuck drivers are. Have all these additional technical bullshit I have no idea about. You're right. You're right, GB. And that's exactly why people are going to buy the Steam machine regardless of its price, because they just don't want to deal with that.
Memory that's populated in the slots. Like, you know, at some point you might have 2 DIMMs, at some point you might have 1. It just changes based on the supply that we can secure.
The capacity is the same, but there are single versus dual channel concerns there. As we're preparing to publish the teardown, so after the review went up, Valve emailed us to say, quote, "We misspoke here. All units will actually have 1 16 gigabyte stick of RAM. It's possible that this might change in future builds, but the units that customers are currently signing up for will all come with 1 16
I don't like that RAM capacity.
gigabyte stick of RAM," end quote. And again, to be clear, that was Valve's original statement, so Valve is correcting itself here. So the ramifications of this are, unfortunately, that means it will be in the worst configuration from a performance standpoint, particularly in non-gaming workloads. We're actually actively testing the gaming impact. We'll let you know how that affects it. The other implication is that there's a single slot empty, so if you want to look at it that way, it does mean that you could buy...
Okay, so what do you get? Display port, HDMI, power, LAN cable, 1 USB-C, and 2, I would assume these are 3.0 ports.
Another 16 gigabyte stick and put it in there. Now, ideally, they would be spec matched. It's really not great to mix and match memory sticks for stability reasons. But anyway, we'll talk about that more in a performance benchmark coming up. We replied to ask Valve if it'll make any public note if or when it changes from a single 16 gigabyte stick to 2 8 gigabyte sticks, because people probably would want to know that, especially if they're, say, going to buy another 16 gigabyte stick and then it arrives and it's only got 2 8s. At the time we're editing this, they haven't responded yet, but it was the end of the day. We'll put it in hardware news if they do. For the basics here, so this is a pretty simple box. It is a cube, and it's got a big hole in the front. There's no screws on this side, and then on the back,
I can imagine if I got a hold of one of these systems, I'd immediately start 3D printing out better designs to put on the front of that thing, almost instantly.
We've got 2 screws up top. The bottom is just hinged on metal, and then the I/O doesn't quite stick through the plastic. So unlike some of the consoles I've taken apart over the years, this is way easier to do that first step of getting into without having to like pry a bunch of plastic clips and things. So that's good. And Valve is really targeting repairability on this. So they were telling us that they're working with, I think iFixit is the main partner. Don't know if there's others, to sell replacement parts of basically everything that is in the Steam machine, which is awesome. That's what we need to see more.
Okay, that is a fact in their favor. That is one that I've kind of left out. Ease of repairability. And let me just make sure that I put this other one here before I forget. That's a big one. So that's what we're looking at with this.
More of, I don't think they're going to do that initially because they need the supply to make these, and hopefully there aren't any broken ones right out of the box. But that's the plan, and that includes selling the power supply, which is custom, separately in the future, they say. So it's a blade connector. We'll get to look at that today as well. I have not gotten to see this with the heatsink removed yet, though. So we're going to look at that together. Let's get started. We brought you this video with our Steam Vent plates that we just launched on store.gamersnexus.net.
Genius. They're already getting ahead of the market. Geniuses. I can tell immediately that those are 3D printed off of an FDM printer, and you could probably do this at home yourself, or you could ape their designs and just order it online from someone who does 3D printing and stuff like that. If I was in a first world country, I would immediately start 3D printing out resin 3D prints of these fucking things as opposed to FDM, because FDM plastic tends to melt, whereas resin has a higher temperature resistance, and I could sell those at a higher price to people, and they're super easy to print out because it's just a flat plate.
These improve CPU and GPU thermals of the Steam machine and add a dust filter while supporting our in-depth testing and our local team of 9 directly. We fully modeled the Steam vents in-house, including months of R&D on design, structural rigidity, and slicer settings.
It's really not that hard. it's all of the mechanical testing that they're doing here can be done if you just know a little bit of fluid dynamics.
Because we're 3D printing these ourselves. Our team here hand installs the 4 magnets with 3M VHB backing in each plate we print and preps the dust filters that we custom design. Because Valve doesn't include a dust filter for the machine and it has gaping holes in the front. The steam vents come in a variety of colors, including blackout, a purple-blue color shift, orange box as...
You can 3D print a pair of tits onto the plate and sell it. You could, you could probably take this faceplate, put in the exact same airflow mechanics and dynamics, and right here in the center of this plate, just put someone's favorite anime waifu, and you would sell out almost instantaneously.
Color shift, an obnoxiously vibrant tricolor, stone-colored grill, silver blades, and a few blues. Our design is directly inspired by the Fractal Torrent, the best-performing ATX case we ever tested, and our homage is named Downpour. 3D printing is what allows us to move fast and make so many color combinations because we don't have to hit high minimum order quantities. It also eliminates wasteful freight hops and price hikes, tariffs, and bullshit because we just print it in the office and have our existing team oversee production. Then we bring it to the local warehouse team for assembly. It's also easier for me to sign.
They've got to put ironing on it. They've got to do a better job. So I know this because I used to be the 3D printing guy in my university and I knew a lot more about a bunch of stuff. These lines here, you can iron those out using the tip of the FDM nozzle. All you need is a little bit of custom G-code. It's really not that hard, but you could smooth this out to an entirely flat surface. You could do a better job with this. You could honestly do a better job with this. The other thing they could have done was they could have 3D printed out these front face plates and then injection molded them to get rid of the layer lines, because one of the things that you find out in 3D printing, especially with FDM, is people fucking hate the layer lines.
Easier for me to sign these since we make them here. So I'm going to be signing the first 500 that we print, and then we'll distribute them randomly across orders over the next few weeks. We're also including a 7-year warranty, so if you have any problems with the plastics or dust filter at all over time, just email us and we'll swap it for you. The warranty even covers accidental damage, so if you drop it into a vat of acid, send us a photo of the charred remains and we'll send you a new Downpour steam vent under warranty, as long as it was by accident. If you're wondering if our product is necessary, the answer is no. It's completely unnecessary because Valve did a pretty fucking good job on the thermals and you don't need to buy ours. But we did an even better fucking job, and we have a ton of data to prove it. The end result is more color options, better quality control, and more of the money goes directly to my team locally to keep making videos.
Another way that you could improve this is you get a PC fan that is a flat form factor fitted inside of that, and that way you've got more airflow going through the thing, as long as you can keep the fan quiet.
Grab one on store.gamersnexus.net. Back to it. All right, so technically the manual for this advises us not to take it apart at any level for any reason, which is really, I think, just a liability thing. But the SSD is pretty accessible. We'll start there. So for taking it apart, I'll remove the panel on the back.
Not going to lie, a 3D printed Assyrian architecture skin for the Steam Cube would look dope. I think there's going to be an entire secondary market that opens up with the Steam Deck or the Steam Cube here, where people are going to be 3D printing designs to put around their cube. I think that's just going to happen.
Backside,
that's going to be par for the course.
The most that I've done really is there's 2 screws. These are Torx 9, and they are captive, so that is awesome. Really like working with captive screws on consoles because sometimes they can suck to reassemble. Down here, this took me a minute the first time I did it, but you don't have to do anything here. No prying, no bullshit. You can basically just do this, which is also awesome. It's really simple, just folded metal, stamped and folded, that sits over a lip, and that's it. Like, now it's removed. There's some padding here. Should be for vibration. There might be some RFI stuff, radio frequency interference, or EMI. They have to pass certain regulations. Sometimes you'll find pads for that, but it could also help with vibration and rattle, just since the fan is back there. And then now that we're into the main box, at this point, oh, the feet need to come out. I forgot about that step. So these are actually pretty nice. I remember when I first encountered these, I was really annoyed because I was like, oh, fuck, are they going to glue this shit to the chassis? Because that's normally what you see in laptops. They'll glue the feet in, and you have to peel it out and find a screw. Nope, it's just a piece of rubber with a screw going through it. No glue. Awesome.
Good idea.
Like that's great, because normally this is the part where you start like destroying the feet of your device, and you only get so many kind of cycles of that before you need to buy new ones and stick them on. So very happy to see that as well. Okay, it's just come loose. So that was what was holding it in, not the strut things I took out a minute ago. Yeah. So now that those 4 feet are out, that was the only step needed to get this far. We're now disconnected from the chassis. I don't think I need the thermocouples in there.
I wonder if someone's going to try and build a water-cooled version of this.
Anymore. I had these in the bottom chamber. So the reason for this is really interesting. We talked about this in the review. The way this works, so if you don't have one of our panels on it, it looks like this. And that's pretty solid, obviously. Removing this or going to a flow panel like ours increases the amount of air going through here. But it does decrease the amount of air coming in the bottom because that's just how pressure works. So air is going to take the path of least resistance. The fan ends up being able to just pull it straight through the front with a different panel or no panel. And so the end result is this chamber gets warmer. So that's
You could intake that. You could use an air intake ducting system on the front panel to re-guide the air to amplify the air pressure pushing through it. You could do some basic calculations and fix that.
So we talked about in the review and we show the thermal numbers of every other component going down in temperature with no front panel or with our panel, but the SSD going up by a couple degrees. And the reason for that is that where if you look at this is the front of the device right now. So that sits behind the big grill, the holes in the chassis. There's no smaller dust filter. This is what Valve ships. So that sits behind there. You'll notice these holes down at the bottom, those are another way for air to get into kind of that main chamber, but without being actively pulled through it as much anyway by the fan. The fan still pulls through here, just not nearly as much, which is why in the Schlieren imaging you only saw a little bit kind of drafting in there. But then really what's happening is for bottom intake, a lot of air is coming straight in through the bottom, through the grill they have in the bottom of the chassis, and some of it is entering up. You can see this hole here, and then it's back that grill that's like angled at the top side. It's going through that path.
Oh, that's weird. Oh, that's disappointing. This is activating my fucking aeronautical engineering brain right now. The fact that they've got this flat base plate here means that you're going to get ambient temps that are going to sit in certain corners, where you're going to get these vortices where air just sits circulating and it's going to heat things up over time. This flat panel's a bad idea.
So SSDs
they
here,
could have done better.
There is technically a barrier. I asked them if this was for flow reasons, and I think the engineer said that it was possibly for EMI or RF reasons instead. But if you look at the bottom of the chassis, you'll notice this. This is intentional, this like black plastic strip between the back two legs. This is to try and prevent recirculation because your exhaust is here. And if it's at a lower fan RPM, there's a real risk, especially if this is against a wall or in a media center box, that it gets immediately pulled back in through here as it exits the back. So the air can basically go like that, straight back in. So this wall...
Again, you could put a ducted guiding fan so that it comes out the top of the square instead of the side.
Just goes down to basically the floor. There's not really any clearance there.
Man, I'm getting... my fucking autism's activating when it comes to fluid dynamics here. I know too much about this shit. I know too much about airflow and fucking dynamics. I did this for years of my life. They could have done a better job with this, but they probably tried to do a payoff, a trade-off instead of like actually doing it. Right? What they could have done to make this simple, right, is they could have done an air intake system. So the same thing you find on a car, what you do is you have your steam cube, you've got your air coming in through the bottom here, and it's venting out the back. Because it's venting out the back, it doesn't matter what you do. The second someone puts a wall here, and because there's a wall here, you're going to have some component of airflow recirculating. Even with this lip down here, it's still going to happen because it's going to move around the sides of it. It's going to cause weird pressure issues. When you're pushing through the bottom, the fact that they've got this flat plate in here, and then you've got ducting going through here, what's going to happen is that you're going to have airflow that ends up here and circulates in a vortex, and that's thermodynamically going to cause heating issues when it comes to the thing. So if they've got any like important components sitting in the back here, they're in trouble, right? You've got the front faceplate here. And so what would have been a better idea is you get a flat form factor fan, right? You make this a two-chambered system. You have intakes on it here so that you get airflow that gets pulled in, sits in a chamber here, blows into a fan here, because then that prevents pressure reduction here coming in through the bottom, because then you can slow this air down, kind of like a car, and then you can eject air out here at a faster rate. Next thing that they would need to do is put a ducting system in the back here. It doesn't even need to be big, just needs to be a basic guided plate that pushes air out towards the top instead of recirculating it out to the bottom. I know too much of this fucking shit. I know too much fluid dynamics. It's fucking, oh God, it's infuriating. Drives me insane. Leave it like this so that Gabe watches it. Gabe's not watching that shit. I'm a literal nobody. He's got more important things to do, like buy another yacht, and he deserves it.
To try and help prevent some of that. And it does work. I tested it. So that was cool to see. Good engineering by Valve.
I doubt the static pressure is real high for those fans. It's probably not that high. However, what I'm thinking about here is thermodynamic air dumping, because air is not that good of a conductor of like for cooling purposes and shit. And in order to get it to do a better job, you want it to dump out air at a faster rate so that you're getting colder air in, so that there's a higher temperature difference, so that it forces more cooling to occur. So I think maybe the trade-off is sound. Maybe the trade-off is sound and they don't want the machine to be that loud, and that's why they're going for that kind of system. But I do think they could have done a better design on that.
Despite kind of their form factor limitations. This fan is kind of insane. Let's disconnect this.
With seconding Jim's suggestion, mail them with the exact thermal dynamics issue and include a full application in the warning email. You know what? If I ever got my hands on this thing and I could test it out and I could actually get the thermals of it, I would do that. But until I've got the physical object in their hand, because there might be some other fuckery going on here that I just don't know about.
This thing.
I'm just going based off of what I'm seeing here.
This is a crazy fan. I'll talk about why in a second. We tested it on the fan tester and it has absolutely crazy pressure. But shield covers a cable.
Maybe a knock to a fan. A knock to a fan on the front end would probably be like... that would do a solid job of this.
This is now loose. That's our I/O board with 1 gigabit. Unfortunately, Ethernet. I really wish they did more there. Get these large screws out to remove the fan. Now the fan itself has antennas mounted to it. When I first saw this, I was like, oh fuck, like this is not good, because I was really worried I was going to have to. This board is glued to the plastic frame. They've custom molded this plastic frame, so the mount is non-standard. Valve made it to fit this heatsink, which is also interesting because you'll notice the fins are oriented vertically, more like a server style, and that's because they're going for that really high pressure, and they're using the L-shaped fin at the top to seal it like a box to force all the air through the fin stack, rather than what you typically see in a tower cooler, which would be horizontal. But anyway.
Okay. This is 1,000% me being a fucking nerd about this, right? One of the most irritating things about heat sinks is the fact that everyone uses flat fins, right? But if they used a Venturi tube system, they could get a higher pressure. If you're reliant on pressure for your cooling, you want to use Venturi because you want to increase air pressure. And you could dump out extra heat at a higher rate. So one of the most frustrating things about cooling fans is that they're all these vertical lines. But what you could do is you make a Venturi pressure system like this, and you make another one like this, and you go high pressure to low pressure, and you dump out more heat here because there's more pressure. Air has to move faster through these gaps. I mean, slower through these gaps, so there's more time for heat transference, and as you get up here, there's less heat transference that's needed. Flat fans are such a bane of everyone's existence, but that's probably a manufacturing issue.
Wait, this is glued to the plastic housing for the whatever it is, like 28 or something mil thick, might be 30. I think it's 28 fan. That's running an antenna, and so originally I was worried I'd have to disconnect it here, but no, it's actually pretty easy to remove it on this side. Just we have to keep track of which wires are part of which are socketed where. So now we're in new territory. So this follows, you can see they've got all these pieces. Those are holding the antennas in. That one actually did not need to come undone for the fan, but the fan cable does. Fan cable, if for any reason you're ever in here, absolutely need to support the connector housing as you remove the fan. It could potentially come out otherwise. And now this antenna needs to back out. Yeah. Fan is free. So we've got a very server-looking module here. And this is like super compact. It's pretty cool. So that's what they're using for all the cooling. Some fat copper heat pipes, vertically oriented fins. These are pretty wide spacing, which is to reduce the resistance the fan faces so that it can, if there's too much resistance, you're not going to be able to pull the air through it. And then the fan itself is also pretty interesting. This thing is ridiculous. Notice how you can't really see between the blades anywhere from certain angles. So it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blade fan design. That's just our tack sticker from our testing. And they're using really fat blades with a pretty gradual swoop to them. And so the end result is the pressure on this is great and the flow is pretty awful. Like they tend to be in opposition. You've got CFM and then you have millimeters H2O or millimeters Aqua. And this is great for pressure, which is because it mounts, at the back over here. And it's just pulling air through this pretty long fin stack. So it needs to have good pressure performance and also to pull through the bottom. So that's why they've done the fan like that. And
I think they could have designed the duct around the fan to force higher pressure. They're using a high pressure system as opposed to an airflow system. They could have molded the fan system around this to get higher pressure out of this.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I did have to.
I'm gonna stop being a fucking nerd.
Convert it into a standard 4-pin.
I'm gonna stop being a fucking nerd about this because otherwise I'm gonna be stuck here forever.
And think I would have to do that, but they've got the labeling down there, so it's PWM is blue. Someone's actually marked it. F is for the fan tachometer, and then positive and negative on the far side. And if you look at one of our mod mats, so we've got PWM, we have tac, and then we have positives here, actually 12 volts here, and negatives on the outside. So I did have to rewire that. If these types of wiring diagrams are useful to you, like it was to me a couple days ago when I built a fan cable for this, then you can go to store.gamersaccess.net and grab one. This is the GN15 model. All right, so this is where I stopped. Now we're in new territory. I really want to get to the memory on this. So this is definitely the power supply. See some massive transformers and gigantic capacitors in there. So that's going to be a power supply. I'm going to start with getting every board off of this so I don't have to worry about protecting them anymore. So we'll remove the SSD. Some of these screws are marked. I was talking to Valve. They said they have an internal torque guide for every screw. They said the really important ones have spring retention, so that should be the actual heatsink. I did ask if they'd be okay distributing the torque guide to us to publish for everybody doing personal repairs. They didn't say no, but they also didn't say yes. They answered a different question. But if there's a lot of people interested in it, I could ask again and they might do it. So that was the M.2 SSD. This just holds the cable in, so we'll set that aside with the drive. And there's the cable itself. Those just pop out like that. They pull from the metal.
I can tell immediately. Whoop, hold on. I've got dogs losing their fucking mind. Having an Africa moment. I'm going to be right back. See you in a... Right. Sorry about that. Just had to go grab my dogs. They were barking at a security guard going by. Right. Let's continue. Where were we?
So this is communicating to the daughter board that mounts the M.2 NVMe SSD. That's got PCIe lanes going in it. And you can see they have...
Okay, all of this doesn't matter that much.
Glued that cable.
But I can tell already someone's going to take this... someone's going to take this shit apart at home, and they're going to lose every single one of those teeny tiny little components, and they're going to be fucked.
Not thrilled about, but I understand why. They're trying to compact it down. So glued it to the power supply, it looks like. We may have to unglue part of this. I really like that it's labeled. So it's got the SSD...
But can it play Tetris? At 25 FPS, yes.
The connector label... It tells you which side the SSD is on. It tells you which side the motherboard is on. That's the MB there. It's got a QR code. Like, this is awesome. This is exactly what they did with the Steam controller. And so despite all the pricing challenges for the Steam machine, Valve continues to, so far, we'll see if that continues throughout this, but build pretty repairable devices, which is nice. All right, let's get this one off. This is going to be DisplayPort and HDMI. You'll notice it's labeled. It's got a model on it. Has a revision number. This is great. This is like not cryptic. It's very easy to understand. Anything that makes it like in 10 years, if someone really wants to pull their Steam machine out again and something doesn't work, and they can just fix it themselves, that's always great. We're going to disconnect this cable. No cables on the underside. Top side's pretty simple. It's just our two connectors. Same thing. Cable's labeled. It's directional. The directions are labeled. So that's all good news too. Let's get all of the I/O off. This is the one I don't really want to deal with, but...
You're going.
Uh-oh. All right, so that's disconnected. So far, all the same size.
So far, this teardown's not that bad. Like, for repairability, this is looking pretty fucking solid. Like, you could probably take this to like a PC shop and get this fixed up real easy.
Take this out first. This is the micro SD card slot. This is pull or what? Oh, it's socketed. Okay, interesting. So they've got this connector here. Same thing, revision number, board name, all that stuff, all right there. A couple probe points, it looks like. That's nice. But there's that connector. That just goes to a micro SD card slot. And then that is reading through these pins. So it mounts there, so you got to be careful with those. Nope, okay. Cool, so that's free. Power button is over in this corner. You got a Quectel, I think that's a wireless, yeah, that's a wireless module, which makes sense because the antenna's right there. So that's wireless. These rubber pogos going through for the light diffuser. So pretty simple stuff. I think we have all the appendages removed. So now it is time to try and get into the device. Not stripping the screw would be great. There we go. Okay, well, that's loose. Is that just the heatsink or is that everything? Oh,
there's that side cable
there. That would have fucking sucked. Just shear it. These you have to be careful with pulling onto. Okay, I'm really not a fan of the glue. All right, sick. Okay, this is promising. Is the heatsink? The heatsink is still on there. Cool. Wow, this is great. Okay, basically the heatsink. It's fun. I'm just looking at these colors. They're kind of wild. So they've color coded everything.
I noticed 2 RAM slots, but only one of them's filled. So if you wanted to mod your own system, you probably could.
And down to the springs, it's got like these Christmas colors. There's different springs, different colors. I guess they map those to torque spec, which makes sense. Spring tension, though, you should be able to basically just tighten it. We have a 1-stick Steam machine. If you're occupying both of the slots, that's going to be better for performance just objectively. It might not show up in some of the games. We'll have to test that in a follow-up. But it will definitely show up in memory-bound applications. So some of the certain types of like compression, decompression, certain types of workstation applications, stuff like that. Less common for this device. Gaming, we'll have to test it. So anyway, let's pull this. Patrick's gonna need that later to know what we're buying. So this is direct from SK Hynix. So they're making fucking bank right now. It's not even going through
Hynix? Man, I thought Hynix was dog shit. Have I got that wrong, or am I confusing that with someone else who makes RAM sticks?
module maker that we know of. So SK Hynix DDR5 SODIMM. It is 5600. So they're hitting the advertised spec that they told us in November. That's good. We've got the part number here as well if anyone cares to look it up. So that is our SODIMM stick from SK Hynix. So this is the power supply. This is the whole unit. Looks like you could get in there maybe. You really should not open power supply, just as a general safety disclaimer. This, like taking it off is one thing like this, but you don't want to open up a power supply unless you know what you're doing. It can be deadly in some situations.
Yes.
But
yeah, don't touch the toroid. Do not fuck with the toroid in there. Leave that shit alone.
That's the power supply. I'm not seeing a label. I wish they'd put a full label on it, but I'm not seeing one. What's the manufacturing mold say? Looks like, though, the plastic shell is made in 25 for us. Anyway, the way this mounts means that the air for the bottom side components...
Hynix is like one of 3 companies that control all of the RAM. Yeah, basically, I've never not had troubles Hynix RAM sticks.
Some of it's coming in through here, and that can come in through the front fan and a little bit through the bottom, but mostly that's going to be the front fan, which is why we saw the improvement we did in some of the thermals on this side with the front plate swap, because the only air getting in there from the bottom would be traveling all the way up through here. On the fin stack itself,
that's nuts.
so this is the top.
All those fucking right angles are a terrible idea.
Box right here. That is, we've got wireless and Bluetooth antennas here. And remember, they have a puck integrated in this for the Steam controller. So these 2 antenna modules are pushed up against the top of the box, I guess, to try to get better range. Now we can pull apart the bottom. They've got it numbered. I'm going to follow the guide. I personally don't fully loosen these. Sequentially, I like to do a quarter or a half each. We've already done all of our thermal testing, so at this point, we don't need the AB with valves stock application anymore. Motherboard models down here, F7F, MBH0, revision H.
So it's not so much that they're shit, it's really just that Valve had to get whatever they can. Yeah, I can understand from the RAM pricing issues and the problems that they've been having, generally speaking, the cost of everything, they probably had to make do with what they had. But I'm kind of glad that they did leave the second RAM slot in and they didn't just remove that entirely, because if you want to upgrade the system later and put in a higher RAM stick, assuming you can get a hold of one, then you can.
Even this retention bracket, which is fairly elaborate, is labeled with QR codes. Okay. All right, so we've got our Mylar tape there to separate it from the PCB. Pretty standard stuff. Retained screws that are captive, plus the color springs on top.
Yeah, it's pretty normal.
Side. We should be able to break it free. Oh, okay. There's thermal putty. All right. This needs to go back together right away so this stuff doesn't get smudged. Thermal putty for the inductors, for the memory modules, and for the FETs here, the MOSFETs. Capacitors are on the other side, the underside of it, cooled by air only. And the reason you use thermal putty, so this stuff, this like gooier stuff, it's a better gap filler, and it tends to create a thinner layer than with a thermal pad. It's also a lot more forgiving with varying mounting pressures. So if someone were to assemble this and be a little off on one side or the other, this will forgive a lot better than a pad, which can create a gap. So those are the reasons to use it. It's a good material. It's just less common. And then a free gigabyte just liquefies and melts, I guess. I need my alcohol. That's paste. No markings. All right, cool. So this is the CPU. That's named the Ryzen part. That's the CPU. This larger part, that is the GPU, which makes sense. This is going to be our VRAM. So another clue why it's the GPU, but Radeon style, top metal retention, the VRAM accompanying it. This is GDR6. And then for the rest, I mean, you look at the VRM, I guess we've got 7, 8, 9 total phases. There's a couple stray phases on the other side, might be for minor power rails. So I'd have to map them with a DMM to probe it, to each device, but relatively compact VRM. And then, yeah.
I mean, all of this looks pretty fucking solid, particularly for its form factor. All of this looks really fucking solid. I'm just spurging out about the airflow stuff because that's what I was good at.
That's just gonna be a big copper block on the bottom, connecting everything to the aluminum fin stack, which from what I can tell appears to be soldered to the actual base plate here. So that's good. So I don't think there's anything left. I think that's like the whole thing. So there's some screws on the inside here. I don't know how well you can see them on camera, but that would allow you to remove the entire front mesh thing. So there's a couple screws down there for that. That's not going to teach us anything new. I mean, this was actually pretty easy. It's not bad. Like, it's a decent amount of small parts. This is one of the few I'm going to reassemble immediately because I don't want to have to remember this stuff later. So we're going to do this right now. But comes apart pretty easily. Things to know, you could definitely just replace the thermal interface material on both the silicon parts with any paste. It would be fine. And then the thermal putty is really important to know. That stuff, I would really just advise trying to not mess with it and like don't leave it out, don't let it collect dust, don't put a hand down in it.
You don't
It's pretty annoying to replace, because to really replace it properly, you want all the same materials. You'd want to remove it all and put a whole new layer in. So anyway, pretty easy to work with, easy to take apart. They built it in a way where the heatsink did not have to come off of the PCB unless, I guess, you really want to take it off. Like, you don't need to take it off to get to the memory, which is great, because I personally, we normally don't want to tamper with the thermal solution a manufacturer installs for testing purposes. It's just better to not open it up. So easy access to the memory. The storage is the easiest to access because it's just right in the bottom of the computer itself. So that's a couple screws, you get to that right away if you wanted to upgrade it.
I think both between Linus and him, there's a sense of urgency to find the catch, because despite all the problems, it still seems a little too good to be true. I don't think so. I don't think they need to find the catch, because we already know what the catch is, right? It's performing the same as the 6-year-old system at best, and it's pricey. So I think the catch is, and this is kind of Valve behavior, is that they've told you what the catch is up front. So that's not going to be that big of a deal. I think you might have a kernel of truth there in the fact that there's a lot of manufacturers who put a bunch of bullshit, they lie to people, and so they're so conditioned to looking for a catch, looking for an extra problem somewhere, that it would make sense to look for it.
Not difficult to do. You just pull the NVMe M.2 device and that's it. So overall, the assembly is good. It's very compact. It is not that upgradable, or you can repair the device itself explicitly. It's very repairable from the sense that they've labeled everything extremely clearly. It's like the Steam controller. Every cable is labeled. They're all directionally labeled. The screws are labeled. The screws are numbered.
I think for repairability, potential upgradability of someone who wants to take the system and improve it and shit, the fact that they've labeled everything, that's a big fucking W. For high-end users or people who are deep into this tech who want to adapt the system, I think they've done an amazing job of that.
Or colored in some cases. The springs are colored and all that's great, but there's a lot of proprietary stuff. So it's not really upgradable other than the memory and the SSD. But
it's not upgradable yet.
Yeah, that's it. I'm happy with the way it assembles and disassembles. This is pretty straightforward. A lot easier than some of the consoles, I think.
To be fair, Valve did kind of lie. Steam Machine is not made. Yeah, that's their biggest lie. I agree with you. I think their biggest lie is telling people that this thing's going to be 4K 60 FPS. Because that was just utter bullshit.
Part of the year. So hell of a lot easier than the PS5 to get down to the silicon. So that's for this one. Thanks for watching. Check out the full review of the Steam Machine on the channel. It's up.
Okay, not bad. Not bad. Ease of repairability. Potential upgrades in the future. That's going to be a big one. But it really seems like they've gone for a flat system that is really impressive, really straightforward. Their issues are down to performance. I think thermal problems are going to start happening to these systems purely because of user error, but user error is going to be a downside at public perception for people. I do think they're still going to sell out. I think they're going to do well. Now let's take a look at the Nintendo Switch 2. So this is the perspective I'm coming into this with when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2. I don't see the Nintendo Switch 2 as anything except them reselling the Nintendo Switch 1, and it's got zero reason to exist. They just wanted to sell people more shit. That's the way I see the Nintendo Switch 2. I see zero reason that this couldn't have been just a Nintendo Switch Pro or some kind of proper upgrade to the Nintendo Switch. I think it's complete bullshit. Wolfen YouTube channel does a great review. Okay, well, let's check him out then. Let's see. 1 year with the Nintendo Switch 2. Is it still worth it? Fuck this guy. Fuck this guy. Fuck all these people with all this goddamn hair. Motherfucker. Just immediately aura farming. Fucking asshole.
I made a video a few weeks before the Switch 2 even came out. And in that video, I said this. But Nintendo isn't exactly future-proofing themselves here. The specs are pretty sweet, but it'll almost certainly be underpowered for AAA.
You should have went into tech. I fucking should have. I would have hair. God damn it. Why did I stick with MMOs? It took everything from me. Shit. Another downside for the Switch 2 is that you have to pay $20 to play your old Switch 1 games on the Switch 2, which is fucking stupid. It's spiteful, it's manipulative, it's exactly what I expect from Nintendo.
Games a year from now, 2 years from now. Hell, the Steam Deck is already starting to show its age with some AAA games. Okay,
wait. Okay, so he's already said a few valuable things here that I need to note down, right, about the Switch 2. So it's not future-proofed. Then again, I could say the same about the Steam Deck. I mean, the Steam machine. Because it's performing at a 6-year-old system level. Waste money swapping over your games from the Nintendo Switch 1. That's also an important factor. I think that matters as well.
Expect this new Switch 2 to last the next 7 or 8 years? I repeated that one line a few times in a few different videos. Almost certainly, PC handhelds will start coming out that will quickly usurp the Switch 2's specs, especially because PC handhelds have a yearly release cycle. They're always coming out with new stuff. Oh, how young and naive I was. It is now 12 months after owning a Nintendo Switch 2. It does not feel like it's underpowered. In fact, if anything, it feels like it has gained power. Third parties are embracing it in a way we did not have in the first year of the Switch 1. And what's worse is the PC handhelds I've been pitting the Switch 2 against have skyrocketed in price. Doesn't seem like...
Ooh, it's a lot cheaper than other handhelds. That's a huge bonus for Nintendo there. Holy fuck.
A worthy comparison anymore. The best gaming experience in a PC handheld right now is the Lenovo Legion Go 2. You should not buy a Lenovo Legion Go 2. It is $2,000.
Fuck. God damn, that Steam price for the Cube doesn't look so fucking bad hearing that.
That is 4 times more expensive than a Nintendo Switch 2 after the price increase that's coming in September. The Lenovo Legion Go 2 is not $1,500 gooder. One of the biggest beefs on the internet.
2,000. Fuck me.
Is the Nintendo Switch 2 versus the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck was the best value in gaming 2 weeks ago. The news of the Steam Deck price increase crushed my whole world. I'm still f***ed up from that. Lots of people were even mad at the Switch 2 price when that was revealed. Now, it seems to not be so bad by comparison. All that being said, some people are feeling a little underwhelmed by the first-party offerings that the...
What do you mean, $2,000? What the fuck do you mean Lenovo system for $2,000? Oh, God. Is that what we're competing against? My entire frame of reference on pricing is outdated as shit. Oh my God, the Cube doesn't look that bad. $2,000 for a handheld system? What the fuck?
Switch 2 has. If it doesn't have a big 3D Mario result.
What? Why not just get a fucking phone? Just get the gaming phones then. Jesus Christ. Hold on. Where is it? Let me see if I can find it. $2,000? You might as well get this fucking thing right here. You might as well, instead of getting that, just get the Red Magic Pro. What the fuck? It even looks better. Jesus. And it's a phone.
Elder, then what's even the point? But there's some solid stuff. And it's the first year. So I'm sure it'll pick up very soon. It's also okay if none of these first parties are interesting to you. I personally think the third parties are filling in the gaps here. Some of the best games of this year are third parties that are available on the Switch too. I like buying my third party games on Steam. But I know now...
Yes, so do I. Steam is the best for third party games. Pricing doesn't make any fucking sense. A RAM stick to produce costs like $70 for a 32 gig stick. In no fucking world should it mean that 2 sticks should be sold for $1,500. I 100% agree, but they're going to get their fucking margins back.
Not everybody likes to do that. I'd argue most people just want to buy the game and they don't want to have to worry about where they're going to play it or what settings they got to tweak or whether or not the game's going to work at all. If it's on the Switch 2, it can be on their device in just a few taps. That's why AAA consoles are as popular as they are. So after a year of owning the Switch 2, I think most people have been extremely happy with their decision. It is a great device with great support from developers that is great for most people.
Is this guy a Nintendo glazer? I don't know anything about this guy. Is this guy a Nintendo glazer? Because I'm willing to believe what he has to say here, but I don't know if he glazes it. No, he does other products as well. Okay, so he's not a Nintendo fanboy by the look of it. So I'm tentatively putting this down, right? So I'm tentatively putting this down as decent value for money. I'm tentatively putting that one there. I might delete that one later.
I, personally, haven't been playing it that much. This video is sponsored by Belkin.
Okay, skip.
I had a checklist.
Skip your ad.
Sorry. Trust me, I do see the appeal of the Switch 2. Every time I do pick it up, I'm reminded by how much more well-designed it is physically than any other handheld I've ever owned. It's so...
What makes it so different than the Switch 1, though?
Thin and powerful. I think it's a perfect compromise between ergonomics and portability. And I think that Nintendo has the best first-party offerings in the industry. They're just a bit slow-rolling with their first parties, and my third parties are being played elsewhere. By comparison to any...
Transparent Switch looks pretty cool. We used to have purple plastic transparent Game Boys back in the day, and that was the most banging aesthetic ever. There is no gaming aesthetic that has outperformed transparent cases on games.
Other first-party console release, they've got a metric ton of first-party games. Just, not every one of them is going to capture your attention. Mario Kart World is a very good Mario Kart game. It's a huge deal for families that spend a lot of time with Mario Kart. I am not a big Mario Kart guy. Donkey Kong Bonanza is an amazing game. I didn't finish it, don't tell anybody. Kirby Air Riders was fun for about 2 days. I didn't finish it, don't tell anybody. Metroid Prime 4.
I'm noticing a trend here.
I liked quite a bit, but that's not necessarily a Switch 2 exclusive. It's also on the Switch 1, and it actually performs very well on the Switch 1. I also didn't beat that, don't tell anybody. Pokemon Pokopia is a cultural phenomenon, almost on the same level as Animal Crossing. If we can only bring back another pandemic that locked us all in our homes with nothing to do but play Pokemon Pokopia. It is a surprisingly good game. They do a really good job of capturing that formula of always giving you something you want to do next. I didn't beat that, don't tell anybody. Tomodachi Life is another one that I had a really good...
I heard a lot of people making weird memes inside of Tomodachi Life. Like a lot of fucking weird memes in this game.
Good time with. I describe this one as Mad Libs, where you fill in the blanks with people that you care about, and the game does a really good job of putting them in funny scenarios. It's also a Switch 1 game, and I didn't beat that one, don't tell anybody. I do feel like I got my fill of a lot of these games. I'm not trying to argue that they're bad because they didn't hold my attention. I've got the attention span of an iPad kid.
Okay, so this is what I'm learning from this. Very limited in games. Very limited in games.
As a 36-year-old adult, I get the gist of a game pretty quickly, and then I'm just on to the next thing because I like playing all the new stuff as they come out. It's very hard for a game to keep my attention long enough to want to beat it. And even still, I do not regret my purchase whatsoever. I'm just in a little bit of a unique situation. My gaming habits have changed a lot since 2017 when the original Nintendo Switch turned me into a handheld gamer. I was buying everything on Switch just because I wanted that convenience of portability. It was my main gaming rig. I'd argue years later, the Steam Deck had a similar effect on me. It turned me into a PC gamer, something I didn't think would ever happen. I didn't realize how much faster some games would drop on Steam than they would on the Switch. And the versatility of being
by a long margin, it's not even close.
Able to play on my Steam Deck or my gaming PC, which is much more powerful hardware, that versatility was life-changing. I used to hate having to tweak settings to get a game to work optimally on a PC. On a console, you don't have to do anything. The games just work. Now, tweaking settings is the first thing that I do in a new game, and I kind of really enjoy that part. And I know that not everybody's like that. And that's part of my criteria when I'm recommending something like the Switch 2. Not everybody wants to pay $1,000 for a handheld.
Okay, that is a bonus. That is a bonus. That is a bonus. No settings fuckery. You're probably going to have to do a lot of settings fuckery when you use a Gabe Cube by comparison. To get a game to run at the performance levels you want it to run, you're probably going to have to fuck around with that thing a lot.
And not everybody wants to launch into the settings the second they launch into a game. They want to just start playing. This is why, despite all of the great and interesting handhelds coming out in the last 5 or 6 years, the Switch 2 is still the easiest console to recommend. It handles third parties like a champ, too. Something the Switch 1 could never. Obviously,
Does it handle third parties well? Does it actually, or is it another walled garden? How many third-party games can you actually get on the Nintendo 2? To be fair, that's PC gaming in general. Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Cyberpunk is like the go-to tech demo. Capcom, though, has been absolutely crushing it lately. Pragmata runs great. Resident Evil 9 is one of my favorite games of the year.
Hold on, I need to Google this because I don't know how real that statement is. Can the Nintendo Switch 2 handle third-party games? Nintendo can absolutely handle third-party games. The system supports a massive library of third-party titles ranging from major AAA releases, indie darlings, so massive AAA. So it's limited spec. It's still limited third-party spec. It's all up to whether Nintendo decides that you're allowed on their platform or not.
That seems to run great on the Switch 2 as well, as long as you're comfortable dealing with the straw hair. Capcom is just really good at optimizing for low-powered hardware recently. Mina the Hollower just came out, and that might end up topping Resident Evil 9 as my game of the year. But I haven't gotten that far in that yet. I haven't beaten it yet. Don't tell anybody. I did beat Resident Evil 9. Can you give me some credit? Mina runs just as good on the Switch 2 as it does on any other platform. That shouldn't be saying much, considering it's got Game Boy Color-inspired graphic.
It's a fucking RPG Maker game. Come on, man.
But it does take full advantage of the Switch 2's 120 hertz screen. It's one of the few games on the Switch 2 that can run at a high frame rate. There's still not many that do that. It's taken a while for developers to catch up in that way. That being said, all of those games are games.
But I'm surprised that Lords of the Fallen 2 is going to be released on the Switch 2. So am I. I didn't even fucking realize that.
That I played on other platforms. Mina the Hollower specifically, I put a filter over the screen called Shader Glass and applied a sunlight shimmer shader. And that's what makes it look more like it's playing on a Game Boy Color screen. It looks amazing. I love doing stuff like this. And obviously, this is not something you can do on the Switch 2. The only other AAA games that are in Metacritic's top 10 game.
Important factor. Low customizability. But it seems like one of the upsides of a Switch 2 is its strongest performance for handheld. It seems like it's actually the banger system if you want a handheld system. It seems like I'm not hearing anything about performance issues, and usually that's the first thing someone talks about.
Games of this year, or Soros, which is a PS5 exclusive, 007 First Light, which is coming to the Switch 2, although I'm a little worried about that because it does not run great on lower-powered hardware, and Forza Horizon 6, which has been a bit interesting for me. It's a very well-optimized game. It runs great, but playing it on PC Game Pass is a bit of a nightmare. Finding the PC Game Pass version was a bit of a pain in the ass. I also had an update corrupt my download, so I had to reinstall it. It took a significant amount of tweaking to get the game to run at 60 frames per second on an Xbox ROG Ally X, and I can't use the damn Steam controller because it's not a Steam game. It's an Xbox game. And I can't just add it as a non-Steam game. That doesn't work. I bring this all up because these are problems that you don't have on a console.
Yep. It's not problems you have on a console. It's not problems you have on a PC.
Weird is I could just play this on an Xbox Series X. It's literally right next to my living room PC. I could just turn that on instead. I guess I'm complaining, but I just do like tweaking things. I like playing around with stuff like that. I like using controllers I'm not supposed to, even if it is
SD phone with retro art. Yeah, that'll probably work. That'll probably do a better job.
A little bit of a pain in the ass to set up. So I like buying games on Steam because I like to be able to play the game on any hardware that I want. I like to mess around with it, try to get the highest frame rate I can, and tweak a bunch of settings. Let me give you guys an example of the exact opposite. My wife wanted to play Mina the Hollower. I received a Steam code for that. We're in the same Steam family account, so she could just...
But you can't do that on a Switch.
Share the same games that I have. She can just play it on Steam. She has a PC handheld that I set her up with that she can just turn on and play the game there. She bought the game on Switch too, just because she'd rather play it there. It's just easier for her.
Fucking woman. Goddamn fucking woman. It's always the same with them. They always do this. I got my wife Blasphemous on her fucking Steam account. First thing she does is, nah, don't worry about it. I got it on the Switch. I'm like, for fuck's sakes, why did you do this to me?
And that's just a peek into the gaming habits of most people. She has the option to play on any gaming hardware that exists. We have everything. And she chooses to play it on the $450, soon to be $500 Nintendo Switch 2.
Okay, so woman console. Woman console.
Probably the least interesting thing she could have picked, but it's the easiest. And the experience, once you're in the game,
My only 3 friends had a Switch, sold it to get a 2, then sold that to get a better graphics card. They barely use them. Are your friends dudes? That's the difference. Also, as far as I know, a lot of the Switch games are quite different version than the PC console versions, whereas Steam Deck just runs the PC version. Yeah, I think when you're making something for a console like a Switch, you're gonna have to make it customized specifically for the Switch and its hardware.
Is basically identical to other similar hardware that is way more expensive. I mentioned earlier that the Lenovo Legion Go 2 is, I think, the best gaming experience in a PC handheld right now. A large part of that is the 144 Hz OLED screen. It's beautiful. And all of that means absolutely nothing when the thing is $2,000. Don't forget.
It fucking doesn't mean a goddamn thing. I can't even consider that thing. $2,000. Buy 2 Gabe cubes instead.
You have to fight with Windows to get the game running. Most people aren't going to want to do that. One of the biggest criticisms of the Switch 2 is the screen. It's just an LCD screen. I thought Nintendo was past that. The Switch OLED was universally loved. Why'd they go back to LCD? Well, cost. It is a good-looking LCD screen. It's 1080p, 120 hertz, which I never would have expected coming out of Nintendo.
Man, really? They went away from OLED? What? Oh, man.
Most games look great in handheld mode on the screen. I don't often miss having an OLED screen at all. The biggest issue is the ghosting. It's 120 hertz, but the screen refreshes.
No, they were doing so well. They were doing so well. God damn it.
So slowly that the frames blur together. It's not true 120 hertz. It's barely a true 60 hertz, honestly. This isn't really a big deal for a game like Mario Kart World, where there's so...
If I not recall bad, if you have family plan in Nintendo, you can share digital games. Not all games, but good amount of them. Does that cost money? Do you have to pay a subscription fee for that? Because then Steam family sharing is just baseline superior.
So much motion blur.
Do you really notice the difference from 720p to 1080p on a screen that small? Maybe it's just my autism, but I do. I notice.
Anyway, in fact, it did a really good job of hiding the blur when I was testing this at the preview events. That
family plan is $4.99. $49.99. So I could just use the Steam Deck with family sharing, play stuff on my PC, play stuff on my Steam Deck. My wife can play the Steam Deck and it not be a problem. And I don't need to spend $50 fucking that I don't have. That's what I'm hearing.
Nintendo had, because they only had Mario Kart World running in handheld mode. And I guess they had Zelda too, but that game originally runs at 30 frames per second, so anything was better than that. Most games look totally fine, but a fast-paced side-scrolling game might look a little wonky. Some people are more affected by this slow refresh rate than others. I think I've become pretty sensitive to low frame rates, but honestly, this screen blurring doesn't really bother me all that much. And I don't think it's going to bother most of the millions of people who are going to get this thing. They probably don't.
Again, he's just repeating this exact same point right here. Woman console. That's what I'm hearing.
Even know what a hertz is. The actual power of the Switch 2 doesn't seem to be a limitation yet, at least not compared to its competition. 007 First Light is coming to the Switch 2, but it was delayed. Having played 007 First Light on both a Steam Deck and a $2,000 Lenovo Legion Go 2, I can see why the Switch 2 version was delayed.
They're doing the OLED screen on purpose for a later Switch 2 release, just like the Switch 1. Okay, so basically what they're doing is they're pretending it's an upgrade by dialing back the original system so that they can then sell you the same console at a higher price later using the OLED. That's annoying.
It's pretty rough on low-powered devices. The Switch 2 is basically a Steam Deck in terms of power until you plug it in. Then it gets a slight power boost. The problem is that developers and also Nintendo want the games to run as perfect as they can on the Switch 2. The standards are much higher when you have a closed ecosystem. There's no excuses for a game to be like constantly crashing or having any sort of glitches or anything.
Yeah, Nintendo won't allow that. They've got a walled garden. They would not allow some dog shit that breaks on their system.
It would be taken off of the storefront. On Steam, it just might lose its verified checkmark, verified for Steam Deck. Not to mention the specific optimizations that the Switch 2 version gets. It's going to be quite a bit longer until there's realistic competition among PC handhelds. I mean, first of all, the Switch 2 is way more mainstream. It's close to 20 million sales in its first year. The Steam Deck is the most popular PC handheld, and in its first 3 years, it hit just under 6 million units. I'd imagine those sales would start.
I didn't know that the Switch 2 was that popular.
Start
Jesus.
slowing down too now that the price is so uncompetitive. And every other PC handheld is expensive. And they're not getting all that much more powerful with each new iteration coming out thanks to those chip shortages. So my original theory of PC handhelds quickly usurping the Switch 2 is turning out to not really be the case. It will take a decent amount longer than I thought. So my original theory of PC handhelds quickly usurping the power of the Switch 2 ended up not really being the case. It seems like it will take a decent amount longer for that to happen, thanks to market conditions. Sorry. That's not to say there aren't PC handhelds that are more powerful. They're just unrealistically expensive.
Yes.
I enjoy diving into my Switch 2 every chance I get. I love me a good Nintendo exclusive. Even the retro library. It's much easier to jump in here than it is to set up an emulator. And I'm going to be playing it a lot more. Star Fox comes out soon. And despite some of the hate that's getting online, I love Star Fox 64 and all of its various iterations. So I'm sure I'll at least like this new one too. Rhythm Heaven is another one I'm looking forward to. The Dusk Bloods, which is basically co-op Bloodborne.
Okay, he's just
Orbitals
going
looks
through the
good.
games
Call
now.
of Duty is coming to the Switch 2. That hasn't been playable on Linux in a really long time, which means it doesn't work on SteamOS. And of course, they're not going to just stop making Mario games. That's why I own a Switch 2. But Call of Duty is probably one that I'll end up getting on PC, even if that interests me at all. The Switch 2 is more of a first-party machine for me. I'll admit that I got it because I felt obligated to. It's my job. But also, I'm a fan of Nintendo. I'm just using it much less than I thought I would because I have so many other options these days.
That's the big one. That's the big one. It seems like if you have no other console, no other handheld, and you just love Nintendo, this is going to be your shit. And if you want something extra or you want something more, this is not going to be your shit.
But I've been using it enough to justify its purchase. And every time I do pick it up, I have a great time with it. I'm excited to pick it back up in a few weeks when Star Fox comes out. And it's definitely the handheld I'm going to continue to recommend for most.
I was sick of Mario games after Super Mario 3. I was sick of Mario games after Super Mario Brothers 1.
People. If you're deciding whether or not the Switch 2 is worth it for you, think about the games that are on it and whether or not a decent amount of those interest you. If you're between a Switch 2 and a PC handheld, make a little T-chart and decide which one has more games that you're going to want to play.
Hey, that's what I'm doing.
Don't get a Switch 2 in the hopes that a game will eventually come out that you're going to like. What if they don't announce that Ocarina of Time remake this month? Get it when the game that you want comes out. Don't feel left out unless there's things you want to play right now. But there is a decent amount. I'm sure you'll find something. So what do you guys think about your Nintendo Switch 2? Has it been worth it for you? I know a lot of you guys watching this are people who have other devices that you could be playing games on. So you're going to be a lot more critical, and that's...
All right. That was a decent video. That told me a lot. I think the only fair thing to do now is to go through one more Linus Tech Tits video just to get a fair baseline on what we're looking at versus what we had with the Gabe Cube and what he was talking about. Maybe he has more positive things to say. We'll skip through all his ad bullshit plugs. I think I've come to a decision already, but there might be one or two extra factors here. Are you familiar with Nintendo Virtual Game Card System? No, I'm not. I'm not at all. I'm not a Nintendo fanboy. I've skipped most of my Nintendo my entire life. It's basically it's a woman console from all I can see because my wife loved her Nintendo Switch 1. She actually absolutely fucking enjoys the shit out of it. And I don't know if it's worth getting the Switch 2 versus continuing to just use the Switch 1. It seems like it's got some upgrades, but I don't know if it's got enough to justify getting a 2 if you've already got a 1. Holy shit. Okay, let's see what the Nintendo Switch actually has to offer. Linus Tech Tits, you've got the last say on this one.
Several members of the team have had them for about a week now, and it's clear that Nintendo got a lot right. But it's also clear that there are some skid marks on the rainbow road of Nintendo's most expensive console ever. First impressions, at least for me, were extremely positive.
I'll change my desktop and I'll give you a surprise after this one.
The new HDR screen absolutely dwarfs the original Switch, and even the Switch OLED, and the whole device feels significantly more premium, with a much better magnetic detachment mechanism for the Joy-Cons, soft touch plastic.
It's about the same as the Nintendo Switch 1 then.
More tactile buttons, bigger joysticks, and an ergonomic situation that, okay, is still far from ideal, but is worlds ahead of the original. D-Brand, who sponsored this video, has you covered in more detail at the end.
Goddamn fucking ad
later.
First, I want to talk a bit more about the console itself. The OG Switch was...
But if you don't use the Nintendo Share System, they brick your console. Yeah, you may be joking, but I wouldn't be fucking surprised.
Obsolete before it even launched. 8 years ago. But still, I'm really impressed with how much more powerful the new one is. With double the CPU core count, triple the amount of usable RAM, and 10 times the graphics processing, assuming none of it is fake frames.
Okay, so there's a performance upgrade.
We ended up with a generational performance leap, the likes of which we haven't seen in a very long time. All those miracle ports that barely clung to playable frame rates at sub 540p resolution run effortlessly here, with some more than doubling their performance, while also managing to—
Wait, Nintendo are also trying to implement some version of de novo into their games. I'm not even joking. Yeah, I did hear about the whole thing where they brick your system if you do something they don't like, which I think is fucking pathetic. You bought the console, they brick your console, you can't play the game that you paid an exorbitant price for. Games are far more expensive on this system over anything else that exists out there except maybe PlayStation.
To appear much sharper because they no longer require dynamic resolution scaling. And I haven't even talked about the games that got one of Nintendo's Switch 2 upgrade patches, which so far seem to look and run great, which does matter to me. To the utter dismay of all the Zelda fans in my life, I've tried multiple times to get into either of Link's most recent open world adventures, but every time I've abandoned them, feeling like the experience on the original Switch's hardware was holding it back. I could have emulated, but as you guys know, it's not my favorite way to experience a game, especially—
most people don't want to get into emulation. Most people don't understand how important emulation is, and they have no interest in getting into emulation whatsoever. That's probably why, again, the GameCube is going to sell so fucking well. Because people want plug-and-play systems.
Especially not for the first time. So I decided to wait for the better Nintendo-approved way to explore Hyrule. And now that it's here, I am pleased to report that, wow, I'm in.
Finally!
The Switch 2 has got me stoked about Nintendo gaming again.
You and a lot of people. Like everyone else, we lean on awesome channels like Digital Foundry and GVG to really get into the fine details of visual upgrades like these. But to our PC game—
okay, that does seem like a decent upgrade.
eyes, both from a cross-platform and first-party perspective, we feel like Nintendo has struck an outstanding balance with the Switch 2's performance, both maintaining a power envelope that keeps it handheld while upgrading the—
I realize something that's important to you specifically. How prone are Nintendo and Valve to banning people for off-site behavior? Ooh. Neither of them tend to be prone to banning people for off-site behavior as far as I'm aware. I don't know too much about how platforms that sell consoles or games are versus very specific game companies that are built around one IP. I think single IP kind of moderation teams are fucking everyone over, but I don't know how bad that this problem is outside of that. Steam seems to not do that. I don't think Nintendo would get into that as much because they're too busy suing people for making better games than them.
performance to the point where both docked and even on the smaller handheld screen, it's hard not to see the improvements. Guys, this ain't no PS5 to PS5 Pro. Oh yeah, I think that pixel looks a little better shaded. This is more like going from the PS3 to the PS4, which coincidentally is about where I would place the visuals overall. Except that thanks to more modern rendering paradigms like ray traced lighting, not to mention Nintendo's do more with less visual style, I think it's fair to say that if Mario Kart World, which I remind you is a launch title and surely hasn't unlocked its full potential yet, is anything to go by, especially the first party games are going to end up looking better. And that's not the end of the good news. The increase in processing power and the faster flash storage, both in terms of the internal 256 gigs and the expandable microSD express slot, both make noticeable improvements for load times and the UI snappiness, which is fortunate because the game acquisition experience can be a bit unoptimized.
I immediately bought a year of Nintendo Online Plus expansion pack so I could get
fucking subscription
access to the Zelda upgrade packs without an additional fee, and found out that I could still download the game without the upgrade, but could also download the upgrade without—
But can I play Leisure Suite Larry? Nintendo will never allow any kind of porno game onto their platform fucking ever.
The game. Whoops. And while we're on the negatives, I gotta talk about the joysticks on the Joy-Con. Obviously, Joy-Cons aren't meant to be the world's best controller. I mean, these shoulder buttons are what passes for an upgrade. But as much as I'm willing to accept smaller face buttons, these joysticks kinda suck. And I think that's—
okay, there we go. There's another one. Controller sucks dick. That is fair. That is fair. Good night, Roadblock. Thanks for stopping by.
Partially due to the rubber skirt that's meant to prevent dust and debris from finding a way into the mechanism. It seems to fold over occasionally, making them feel kinda off. So if you're a handheld hero, you might find yourself eagerly awaiting third-party options from the likes of Ori. However—
how bad is the controller drift on a Nintendo Switch 2 versus a Nintendo Switch 1, I wonder.
If you're the type to throw out the kickstand and grab a Pro Controller, it might not bother you as much. Your old Pro Controller is forward compatible, which is
That just counts as a woman console, doesn't it? It kind of does, yes.
super nice. But the even better news is that the new Pro Controller is actually really good. And I found myself enjoying the Switch 2 most from my couch with one of those in my hands. It's the first Nintendo console that looks great on a modern 4K HDR display, which makes it all the more frustrating that Nintendo couldn't quite find the 96th exit. While the built-in screen supports variable refresh rate, which reduces tearing artifacts and enhances animation smoothness during frame rate dips, this feature is not supported via the dock, seemingly because HDMI output relies on DisplayPort Alt mode and NVIDIA G-Sync doesn't play nice with this conversion. It's possible that Nintendo will address this at some point in the future.
Probably not.
They did eventually add Bluetooth support to the Switch 1 after all, but I wouldn't expect it to happen overnight, which is a bit of a downer. The question is though, does that get in the way of fun?
Well, that depends on your perspective. I mean, it's Nintendo, so obviously there's fun to be had. I mean, they're one of the only developers that is still pumping out phenomenal single-player and couch co-op game after another across a multitude of genres, and generally without ongoing monetization. So I think the small stuff...
What the fuck do you mean without ongoing monetization? You have to pay for their fucking subscription fees to be able to access shit online, to do family sharing. They just monetized at a different angle.
Stuff like a sometimes locked refresh rate shouldn't make anybody that mad at them. But what about charging $20 more per game? That might do it.
Each?
Yeah.
Like,
there you go. That's another way they fuck.
for a single game?
That's right. If, like my son, you've somehow missed the online discourse, Nintendo is now asking $80 US for their
Oh,
marquee
Christ.
titles, which
For the same fucking game. Oh, that's rat fuck behavior.
has left a lot of gamers feeling left out. And that's a perspective that's super easy to understand. Nintendo has been extremely profitable at just $60 per game. So for them to act like, oh, woe is me, inflation has suddenly forced our hand, I get why that feels like the kind of out-of-touch move that big corporations make when they're getting a little too comfy on their throne. Adding insult to injury, many Switch 2 game boxes are just that, decorative boxes with either a download code or
You go into a store, you buy your game, and it's just a code on the inside. What you don't realize is that there's a guy in the back room in the store who's opened the case previously, resealed it with plastic. He's already using the code. You go home, you put in the code, game's gone already. Nintendo does have Leisure Suite Larry Game. I'm shocked by that.
or a hardware license
astounded by
inside,
that.
rather than a full physical copy of the game, something that harms resale and therefore affordability for many gamers.
Done on purpose. They don't want you reselling your shit.
It also contributes to the game preservation issues that purely digital consoles introduce. With that said, I definitely prefer paying upfront for a good game instead of getting the microtransaction-ridden slop.
Wait, what if I only have an offline PC at home? What the fuck do I do with the code? Well, if you've got an offline PC, then you're not playing on Nintendo, so you're already winning.
Been subjected to in recent years. So while it definitely sucks paying $20 more for Nintendo games that will likely never go on sale, if my only options are pay what Nintendo demands to keep creating unique gaming experiences or accept a future where everything is a live service game with tons of microtransactions, the choice becomes pretty
I see that transparent flag. I see what you're doing. Oh yeah, 100% agree.
clear. For me personally, I'm going to be paying that Nintendo tax for now, but I'll be doing it very selectively for expensive flagship titles and allocating more of my gaming budget to those smaller team AA titles that I've been getting a ton of enjoyment out of lately.
Coming back to the hardware, we've got, you guessed it, another Nintendo choice that has divided the community. The bad news is, you're getting an LCD screen on a console that costs more than the Switch OLED, leaving room for Nintendo to introduce a higher-priced Switch 2
They're going to do that.
down the road. Yeah! The good news is that the LCD screen you get is pretty darn good for an LCD. It's 7.9 inches, exhibits...
I honestly can't believe that Nintendo is in business. I mean, wow. Well, think about it. They've done the iPhone thing where they've made a walled garden. They've made sure that all their games are only on their systems. There are people who've been playing Nintendo games for their entire fucking lives, and they love those games, and they're willing to fork out the extra cash just because it's a Nintendo game. They've manufactured success by making sure that no one else can compete with them on the same level.
almost no distracting motion blur, and
Also, however many letters are in the word Nintendo, find 70 IQ and minus that number, and that's probably what you're dealing with when it comes to Nintendo people who are fanboys of these systems.
Actually looks better in real world usage than its raw brightness measurements would seem to indicate. We measured it in SDR at only about 380 nits. And while we don't have a test for HDR for this device yet, it seems to my eyes that between Nintendo's art design for Switch 2 and remastered titles and or the HDR capability of the display, it seems to get a bit of extra punch in HDR. One area where it...
Hold on. There's something that's missing here. And I want to see if he gives me an answer, but otherwise I'm going to need to look it up. Is it possible to transfer the games you already own on the Switch 1 over to the Switch 2 or no?
Clearly falls behind a well-tuned OLED display though, is in minimum brightness. And there's just no other way to put this. The Steam Deck OLED clobbers this thing when it comes to late night gaming if you don't want to see your retinas, along with pretty much everything else. The last big spec is the 120 Hz refresh rate, which was both a surprise for me personally, given Nintendo's allergy to high performance, and also pretty
Yes, but it costs $10. Of course they monetized it. Of course they make you pay money to transfer. What fucking rats? Jesus
exciting
Christ.
for me personally.
So you've bought the Nintendo Switch 1, you bought the game there. You then buy the Nintendo Switch 2. So you've already made 3 purchasing decisions. Now you have to make a 4th purchasing decision to transfer it over. Then you've got to make another purchasing decision for the family sharing shit. Holy fucking shit.
I mean,
and if you try to buy the game fresh on the Nintendo Switch 2, the price has jumped.
there's the obvious stuff, like it's going to be cool that some games are going to use it for spectacularly smooth gameplay. But what I'm secretly hoping for is that we're going to see NVIDIA's advanced video transcoding engine, which we know is in here, turned on, enabling some kind of remote gameplay on the Switch 2. That could potentially unlock a whole world of non-Nintendo games. To be clear, I'm not holding my breath for that, I'm just saying,
yeah, that's not going to happen.
That because they made this hardware choice, technically it would be possible to play Game Pass games.
I have severe doubts that that's ever going to happen.
On Xbox Cloud Gaming or something like that. And high refresh rates in those cases really cut down on the latency, turning it from this is quite playable to this is quite enjoyable, at least for me. And that would be especially cool because of what it would do for battery life. Streaming is way less energy intensive than rendering locally, and at the moment, the Switch 2 is going to have you selecting your gaming seat based on proximity to an outlet rather than based on comfort. It's not bad, it's certainly not worse than a typical handheld gaming PC, and is even a little better than the OG from our quick and dirty early testing, but it falls well short of the Switch OLED, which is going to feel like a major step back if you're coming from that. Oh, I couldn't finally find a spot to talk about this before, so I'll also discuss the regression in portability here. It is still...
You know, every time Linus opens his mouth, my fingers automatically start leaning towards the right arrow key on my keyboard because I'm expecting him to say something about his sponsor.
Slim, which is really nice. But I was down in LA for the ROG Xbox Ally X announcement, and I was like, oh, well, whatever, it's only 20 minutes. I'll just walk to the IHOP for my midnight waffles. Oh, I should bring the Switch too. And then I realized... it's really late at night, and I'm on this random street in LA with the hottest launch hardware of the year, and no pocket large enough to accommodate it. Not even on my cargo pants from LTTstore.com. So
there you go. There's the ad. There's the fucking ad.
Quickly looked around and I tucked it into my framework hoodie, also from LTTstore.com. Smooth, right? But not as smooth as it'll eventually be to tuck it into our upcoming crossbody bag from LTTstore.com.
Oh, bottom line, if you want to switch only to play the big Nintendo games, this is the best way to play them. But it's probably okay to wait for a few more of them to come out. Maybe next month Donkey Kong will push you over the edge, or maybe it'll be Metroid Prime 4 next something. But like, there's no hurry in my opinion. And I personally want to see if Nintendo is going to action some of those questionable policy changes before giving them any more money, like bricking consoles for stepping out of line.
Welcome to the great age of the censorship. You know how they failed to censor Twitter because Elon Musk bought it? All those HR Karens are now working in the video game industry, exercising the minor amount of power they have over people who say and do things that they don't like.
Even if that stepping out of line is just trying to fix it yourself.
And I'd also keep an eye on Nintendo's behavior around subscriptions. They might not have microtransactions in the games, but they sure as heck have them, and it seems like Nintendo is Nintending for Nintendo Switch Online to be an integral part of Switch ownership this time around. So you're gonna have to add that to your bill.
Okay, so the price of something that is a Nintendo Switch is not actually $500. It's $500 plus $80 for the game you want to play, plus another $50 for the subscription that you want to play, that you have to add on to that, plus probably some other sub that's going to be a monthly thing. So this price right here is kind of a lie. because that's the upfront price for the brick. And then if you want anything extra on it, then you pay out your ass. Jesus.
Along with their iconically never on sale library of $80 games and ludicrously priced probably gonna drift accessories.
So, weirdly enough, this almost comes to the same price as just getting the Steam Cube. So by the end of this, you're going to be paying $1,000 regardless, plus minus 100.
All of which means that if I hadn't needed to buy this, like to make this video, I wouldn't be stoked on the value I'm getting right now. Not only is the library of exclusive launch titles extremely small, and I gotta say, personally, as a non-sweaty online gamer, not enjoying Mario Kart World that much. Like many of you, I have a deep library of other, not Switch 2 games that I haven't played, and like many of you, I probably got most of them on sale from one of the many other storefronts on other platforms. Platforms that don't charge a subscription.
Okay, so baseline, I've got to kind of update this a little bit. It seems like the real price of this thing up front is somewhere close to $900, and they've just got a bunch of hidden charges and shit that actually happen in the background. That seems like a more accurate price for what you're expecting for the Switch 2 versus the actual Gabe Cube. What is easier to use? Probably going to be the Steam Cube, because it's push a button, play your games.
To back up your save games to the cloud. So I agree that the Switch 2 is probably going to be a wait for most people at the moment. But even if I wasn't stoked on the value, I'd still be stoked on the hardware. It's a Switch, except it is better than my old one in just about every meaningful way. I mean, the haptics, even the speakers, they sound so much better to the point where just holding this thing and looking at it, it's enough to make me want to jump right back into Hyrule to finally play that game on hardware that does it justice.
Agreed. The Switch 1 had arguably the worst ratio of library greatness to hardware greatness of all time. It was bad enough that I passed over some pretty incredible games, even though I owned a Switch. I just didn't want to tolerate Nintendo's cheaped out hardware. So I guess this is a classic case of careful what you wish for. I wanted more expensive hardware and I got it.
Which means now you're going to need a way to protect it, like with this kill switch from our sponsor, Dbrand. As usual, they showed up. It's too. Dbrand added the
my dick, Linus.
I'm legitimately extremely excited.
Fuck. How many times do you have to suck yourself off with your goddamn ads? All right. That gives me a good enough idea behind what this is, right? So basically, what we're looking at here with the Gabe Cube and the Nintendo Switch is they're not actually that different. Right, when it comes to pricing and costs and shit like that. It seems like long-term, if you want like a long-term system, the Gabe Cube wins. Right, if you're looking for something where it's going to be a high upfront cost and then standardized pricing on gaming and shit, the Gabe Cube wins. Nintendo 2 Switch wins, I think, only on one singular factor, and that's portability. That's it. That's the only thing they seem to have. That's all they've got. All of these factors, it comes down to that. Do you want something in your hand, or do you want something that you plug in and play on a big screen? And get a Steam Deck. Yeah, no, you might as well. Like, it seems like the Nintendo Switch 2, its biggest problems is this, the walled garden of games. The fact that they charge you extra money for shit, the fact that they charge you subscriptions, that it's a whole bunch of hidden fees in the background, the fact that Nintendo are actually pseudo-customer rapists. They love raping your wallet like there's nothing coming out of it. Okay. I think I have a final decision on this. Coming down to it, end of the day, as expensive as the Gabe Cube is, the Gabe Cube wins. I think if you want a better experience, if you want to be able to do more shit, you want a plug-and-play system, if you plan to play on a big screen, it's going to be the Gabe Cube. The only thing that Nintendo seems to have over this is portability. That's it. So, it comes down to this. Buy this if you love video games. And buy this if you are a Nintendo simp or are a woman. That seems to be what it comes down to. End of the day, I can't believe I'm saying this. For as expensive as the GameCube is, it seems to offer more value for money over a longer period of time, despite all its performance issues, than what the Nintendo Switch 2 offers, because you have limited accessibility, a bunch of sub fees in the background, hidden costs, extra more expensive games. You don't get as much variety when it comes to the games. It's not future-proofed, and at some point in time, they're going to release a Nintendo Switch 2 that's OLED instead of LCD. You get no customizability, and Nintendo may very well brick your system. No one's bricking your fucking GameCube. And the worst part about this is, I know for a fact, because unfortunately I'm gay and I married a woman, she's going to want the Nintendo Switch 2 because she wants to play Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. And I think the only thing I can do to stop that from happening is to emulate that fucking game on a Steam Deck, which I already have. That's it. People love a low upfront price with ease of use. They don't think about the future costs. Yeah, they're basically psychologically tricking you into paying more money without you realizing it, because the upfront cost is lower. Whereas it seems Valve has gone for the strategy where they're like, hey, this is how much it costs. End of story. Don't worry about the rest. I think the GameCube's a better system. For all of its fucking problems, the GameCube seems to be a better system than the Nintendo Switch 2. Ocarina is a game from the 90s. Is she really willingly going to buy into a scam for a remaster? She really wants that remaster. That's the problem. I'm going to have to convince her that it's not worth it. Because holy fucking shit, all that rat shit behavior happening in the background drives me insane. No one can brick my GameCube other than me and pasting random terminal commands found on the internet. And you could probably reset it after that and get the GameCube back, whereas that's not happening with the Switch. Because it's an open system and they're using Linux. No, fuck. Okay, it's the GameCube. GameCube wins. Hands down, GameCube is a better value for money offer, especially over a longer period of time. People are already playing a bunch of games on older systems. No one has like newer GPUs and shit that are coming out because it's all too expensive. The entire market's fucked. And it seems like when it comes to the GameCube, they just told you straight up, look, it's going to be more expensive because we're getting fucked on hardware. Whereas these fucking guys over here are doing everything in their power to just take more money out your wallet. Both are dog shit value. Agreed. I think when it comes down, okay, if I was to build a PC from scratch, put in an RTX 3080, you would probably get higher performance than what you're getting out of the GameCube. She's going to play it. All the fucked up dark stuff is going to be removed, at least for the English version, and she's going to get upset again because they shat up the original. Maybe. They probably will remove a bunch of stuff for the remastered version. I would imagine that you would actually have a better experience with someone who's modded and emulated the original Ocarina of Time and like updated the graphics and done a bunch of shit in the background with it and then emulate that system. To me, it seems like if you've got a Steam Deck, don't bother with the Nintendo Switch 2 because you'll probably find a way around the problem. But get the GameCube if you're looking to upgrade a system and you're kind of looking to treat it as a console as opposed to an actual PC that you have to lug around everywhere. Both of these systems are a disappointment. But if we're putting these two against each other, it looks like the GameCube's better value for money overall. Damn. Valve made this for scalpers and Valve fanboys. Yes, they did. And it's working. The GameCube's selling out. Nintendo Switch 2 is selling out. The fanboys are going to battle over this a lot. But both of them don't seem to be the kind of cutting-edge system that you would expect, especially since the GameCube can't outperform a PS5. It seems like a PS5 just outperforms that. What the fuck happened, man? When did we stop pushing technology forward? Why are we going backwards? I think there's one singular advantage that I can see over the GameCube is this price might come down, whereas Nintendo are never changing this price ever in their lives. It'll only get more expensive over time, whereas the GameCube, if there's some kind of stabilization in the hardware market, maybe the price comes down. Up to me, personally, I wouldn't fucking buy either of these systems. Jesus. Both of these systems are not up to spec for what they fucking should be. Agreed at this point, it basically pick your poison. Yeah, don't it's oh man. What happened? What is happening in PC gaming that we stopped pushing the fucking envelope and we're okay with 6-year-old hardware being the cutting edge now? What the hell is going on? So I think yeah, the GameCube wins out of these two, but both of these systems, it's like a hard no. I don't see a reason for anyone to buy these things. AI, you're right. It is AI that's fucking us here. In my head, I couldn't justify a purchase of either of these.